The Thom Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by the Aiden Forecast, an investment newsletter with weekly updates of leading market indicators and a monthly deep dive into what the details of the economy and the markets mean for investors and retirees. On the web at aidenmarkets.com.
Wines have some of the highest pesticide levels in our food chain. This hour brought to you by ecowine.com. Pesticide-free wines, organic wines, imported from France by the Organic Wine Company, ecowine.com.
Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by Super Beets. Super Beets are sourced from non-GMO beets, and they're packed with dietary nitrates, helping to produce nitric oxide for more energy, stamina, and support for healthy blood pressure levels naturally. For more information, call 800-223-8242
or visit tomsbeets.com. Welcome back, Free Speech TV. It is hopefully the last day of our pledge drive. We'll see. If we don't raise enough money, we may have to slop it over into a few days next week. But yesterday was a pretty good day, and we're getting there. We really need to nail this thing down. Special thanks to folks who put together, in aggregate, another $10,000 matching donation for today. So your gifts up to $10,000 will be matched today, and the people who put this together, that is the donors who contributed: Karen Curlin, Tom Johnston, Mark Anderson, Mary Cameron Goodwin Rule, Diego May, Vincent Dabrowski, Genevieve Vaughn, and Kevin Caffrey. And thank you so much for caring enough about this network to make a matching grant, so that everybody else who makes a contribution today, if you make a $10 contribution, it becomes $20. If you make a $20 contribution, it becomes $40. If you make a $100 contribution, it becomes $200. If you make a $360 contribution, it becomes $720. It's whatever you give, it'll be doubled. So it's a great day to give. Plus, it's tax deductible. It's the end of the year. Plus, if you're thinking of making a matching contribution or anything like that, please let the folks know, 877-378-8669, and they'll connect you to the person who takes care of all that sort of thing. But our pledge drive is going well. We're behind, and it's been this way for like the last year, and I think that not every single pledge drive, but most of them have been soft. And I think it's because, so many of us just threw so much money into the last political campaigns, the last year and a half or so, 2 years of politics. Well, really 2 years, because, a lot of progressives threw money at Bernie during the primary. Well, a lot of progressives threw money at Hillary during the primary, too. And so, a lot of people are just kind of tapped out or whatever, but we still have to run a television network. We still have to keep the lights on and keep the electrons flowing and get the signal into your home and get it in the other platforms and venues. I know they're working on getting it on Apple TV. It's on Roku right now. Dish, Direct, Free Speech TV. It's on YouTube. It's on live stream. I mean, it's all over the place. So we need to spread the word, and please let your friends know about Free Speech TV. I mean, what a great thing that we have here. And Free Speech TV, I mean, we're trying to raise money just to keep the lights on. We're not yet to the point where we're talking about let's raise money for a promotion budget. So you are Free Speech TV's promotion budget. You know, no exaggeration. And we need to promote this network. So in addition to making a call today, 877-378-8669, and making a contribution, consider also, particularly as we go into the holiday season here, we'll be getting together with family and friends. A great time to let them know about Free Speech TV. So please consider helping out in that regard too. If you make a contribution of $30 today, Free Speech TV will send you a Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker. Compliments of our friend Caleb. Thank you, Caleb, who printed them for us at no cost. If you make a $60 contribution today, you get the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker plus the Free Speech TV 16-month catalog. That could be $5 a month for a year, too. With a $10 a month for a year contribution, which is $120 or $120 up front, you get the bumper sticker, the catalog, or the calendar, and a copy of Ann Jones's book, Beyond the Messy Truth. With a $240 contribution, you get those three things, the bumper sticker, the calendar, Van Jones's book, plus Claudia Rankine's book, Citizen. An extraordinary look at race in America. With a $360 contribution, you get Van Jones's book, you get the bumper sticker and the calendar, Van Jones's book, Claudia Rankine's book, and my book, Unequal Protection, which I think is more relevant now than it's ever been, given what's going on with the Supreme Court and just, you know, our rights in general. And with a $1,000 gift, come to Washington, D.C. or Portland, Oregon. Portland is a better bet. We're here a lot more. And we'll get together for lunch. I'd be glad to buy you lunch and look forward to it. I have met some just extraordinary people who have been, you know, some of our Free Speech TV donors. So those are the gifts. Those are the freebies. But what's really important is to keep this network going, is to keep Free Speech TV alive, to keep it, you know, and even beyond life support, to keep it vital, to keep it strong. And you know, I'm willing to push as hard as I can to make that happen. It's just, and I know many of you are too. And thank you so much to those of you who have already made a contribution. And if you haven't, please join the other 2% of Free Speech TV viewers who support this network. Thank you.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Friends, patriots, lovers of democracy, truth, and justice, believers in peace, freedom, and the American way. Hey, Shabbat Shalom, Juma Mubarak, TGIF. It's Friday. It's Anything Goes Friday today. Although we've got, you know, there's a lot going on that I'd like to mention. But you know, if there's anything you want to talk about, from, you know, whether the lizard people have taken over the internet, or, you know, is that cigar-shaped thing flying through the skies really a spaceship? Yeah, Drudge has been, no, it's a rock. But, you know, you never know. Anyhow, 202-808-9925 is our telephone number. Ajit Pai, the former Verizon lawyer, and I would bet money, future employee, well-paid employee of the telecommunications industry or contractor thereto, Ajit Pai yesterday blew up net neutrality. There is a way around this. I talked about this yesterday. You're not hearing word one about this in the corporate media, because the corporate media is, by and large, owned by companies that either are internet service providers or aspire to be through mergers or through business model changes. But there is a piece of legislation called the Congressional Review Act that passed a number of years ago. Republicans pushed this thing through so that if a Democrat was in office and, say, expanded the authority of the Environmental Protection Agency, Congress could slap their hand. And they did this to Obama more than once. And now there are Democrats who are saying, well, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. We're going to use the Congressional Review Act to overturn the FCC's killing net neutrality. And all it requires, this does not require a supermajority in either body of Congress. It just requires a simple majority in both the House and the Senate. And once that happens, net neutrality gets reversed. So people all over the country right now are calling their members of Congress. In the House, you have 2 members of the House, 2 members of the Senate, and 1 member of the House, unless you live in Washington, D.C., in which case you only have a member of the House who doesn't have the power to vote. But Eleanor Holmes Norton has been a champion of good causes for years and years, so it's even worth calling her. She can lobby, as it were, talk to her peers. And when you call the offices of Congress, or the offices of your senators and your member of the House of Representatives, just simply say, we would please vote for a resolution of disapproval of the FCC under the Congressional Review Act to reverse this killing of net neutrality. Right? Good thing. I have a question for you. You'll recall back 2 years, a little more than 2 years ago, we got a dog, Louise and I. He's a Australian Shepherd, a miniature Australian Shepherd, more or less. And, and I was asking for your advice on, bringing a dog in with 2 cats. At the time, we had 3 cats, actually. And we got a lot of good advice. Well, now the dog is 3 years old. He still has separation anxiety, particularly around Louise. When she leaves, he just goes nuts, running back and forth and breathing fast and all this kind of stuff. And so we're thinking, let's get a second dog to just kind of hang out with Blue and make him less crazy. He's well trained. In these 3 years, Louise has done a spectacular job of training him. He knows he's got a very large vocabulary and he responds very well, but he's just got this whole thing of, if Louise or I are not around, he goes nuts. So any advice on how to introduce Blue to the new dog? We're looking at a puppy that's it's kind of a mutt. He's a part Australian Shepherd, part poodle, whatever. And but seems to be size-wise and temperamentally wise a good companion for Blue. And and also Blue can be a little resource protective around toys. He fights to protect his toys. How do we get him to dial that back? So if you have any thoughts on that, I'd love to hear them. So let's see, net neutrality. Oh, the Puerto Rico, the tax bill, the Republican tax bill, has a couple of provisions that are actually, in my opinion, not terrible things, except for the way they're being applied. Obviously, the vast majority of the Republican tax bill is terrible, and these couple of small things that are, not unreasonable are not, any reason to vote for it. But basically, what it does is it says that if you're an American company and you're producing products offshore, you're going to have to pay a 20% tariff on those products when you bring them into the United States, even though it's a foreign subsidiary. And another says that you can no longer deduct foreign taxes that you pay from your U.S. tax return. Well, that's all well and good if you're a company, an American company like Apple or GE or something that makes most of your stuff overseas. But this legislation does not exempt Puerto Rico from this. So we're going to see now Puerto Rico, the few companies that are still manufacturing, American companies that are still manufacturing in Puerto Rico, they're going to be hit with a 20% tariff on bringing things into the continental United States to sell them. Puerto Rico is being dealt with as if it was a completely separate country, and yet Puerto Ricans are American citizens. Puerto Rico is a U.S. protectorate. It's a U.S. territory. So this is not a good thing. Yesterday, somebody called into the program and said that she had just watched this movie, Trumping Democracy, and it totally blew her mind. And so I made a note of it. And yesterday afternoon, when I got home, Louise and I pulled up Trumping Democracy. It was available on Amazon. We have an Amazon Prime account. I'm assuming, whether or not, so we could, we watched it for free. I don't know if it's free for everybody else if you don't have a Prime account, but it's there on Amazon, and it's coming soon to Google Play, Vimeo, Vudu, Xbox, and Overdrive. And it just blew my mind. The movie it's called Trumping Democracy. And it's all about basically Robert and Rebecca Mercer and how they used an intellectual technique that Robert Mercer is like this, super genius guy, right? And he figured out how to just shave a little extra margin on stock trades. And out of that produced a hedge fund company that made him a billionaire. He was just a middle-class guy. He was working for IBM. He was just a very smart programmer and math guy. And this documentary, it's the story basically of how Robert and Rebecca Mercer and Cambridge Analytica won the election for Donald Trump. How and why? And it's absolutely shocking. It's called Trumping Democracy, and I want to encourage you to check it out. Today is the 15th of December. Today is the last day. Had this been any day in the last 6 or 7 years, there would have been another 2 weeks to sign up for Obamacare. In fact, it might have been another 6 weeks. I think the sign-up ran until the end of January, as I recall. But now it doesn't even run till the end of December. You've got to be signed up for Obamacare by today. And yes, the law right now says if you don't have health insurance this year, you will pay a tax penalty. So the place to do this is at healthcare.gov. Go to healthcare.gov, and if you don't have Obamacare, in about half the country, you can get about half of American citizens are eligible for Obamacare for free or for very, very, very little money. So check it out. And finally, the Republicans on the National Labor Relations Board, the NLRB, which is supposed to represent the interests of labor, just ruled yesterday in a 3-2 ruling, 3 Republicans to 2 Democrats. The Republican majority said that it is going to be harder for employees and for unions to challenge any company that is franchised. Under the Obama administration, they said, if you're going to go after an individual franchisee, an owner of a McDonald's store, for example, you can also go after McDonald's for unfair labor practices. Now, no, you can't go after the big company. You can't go after where the real money is. This is a horrible hit to workers.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Which, of course, is totally to be expected because the Trump administration is all about billionaires and plutocrats. I mean, he's a billionaire himself. Should anybody be surprised? And welcome Bullet back. Let's see here. Ron in Land O'Lakes, Florida, watching Free Speech TV on Roku. Hey, Ron, what's up?
Hey, Tom. I'm wishing you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Well, thank you. Back at you, Ron.
What I called about was, I was so elated and happy about Doug Jones winning that election and about people of color going out to vote to help him reach that. It's a start, and I'm hoping that more and more people will realize that, instead of saying my vote doesn't count or, being a little lazy and not wanting to really get out and participate, this shows that it can make a difference.
Yeah.
And I think with that in mind, we can do a lot more coming up in the year 2018, of course, 2020. So I was very elated and happy about that. Getting off that subject to your dog, Blue, you have to have a different individual around you guys to connect to Blue so that he won't be flipping out when Louise or you are not available to pamper him.
Well, that's what we're thinking.
If you do that enough, he will get used to other people and he won't freak out.
Yeah. Well, he's fine with other people. He loves other people. And when we went to D.C. last week, we boarded him. There's a local, doggy daycare place. And they said he was fine all week. After he got over being neurotic about us leaving, it took a couple hours. He just hung out with the other dogs. And he sort of bonded with a couple of the people there, too. But it's just the bottom line is we think that having a pal for him would be a good thing. Do you have experience with that, Ron?
Of course it would, because, you know, it gives him somebody or something to kind of play with and mentor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that seems to be the case. So we'll see where it goes. Ron, thank you for the call, and thanks for the advice and the thoughts. Jared in Downingtown, Pennsylvania. Hey, Jared, what's on your mind today?
Hello, Tom. I'm so glad about Doug Jones's victory this week. I donated $200 to Doug Jones' campaign. I think that's probably the first senator I've ever donated to, because I just viewed this race as so critical to the balance of power in the Senate.
Agreed.
Roy Moore is probably the most disgusting human being who's ever held political office in this country, and that's saying a lot. These races are so critical to our democracy. Did I ever tell you the story that when I voted this year, when I went to the polling place when it was supposed to open at 7, it wouldn't open until 7:40 because they didn't have the key, and apparently they didn't have anything set up. So we had to wait 40 minutes just to vote.
Whoa. Can
you believe that? And I asked them, oh, does that mean you'll stay open another 40 minutes? And they said, no.
Yeah.
And I was like, I could probably sue you for this.
So here's the thing, Jared. What you need to do is you need to volunteer to be a poll worker and fix that problem. Fix that problem. Jared, thanks for the call. I don't mean to just throw it all back in your face. That's you know, anytime somebody calls with a complaint, I shouldn't just say, what are you doing? But you know, you could do that.
This year's election results have generated fear, sadness, and despair.
In the days and months ahead,
our democracy may face a crisis of historic proportions.
But there is good news.
There is good news.
There is good news. Thousands of people are stepping forward in solidarity,
resistance,
and resolve.
We join them.
We join them.
We join them.
In standing with the most vulnerable communities among us.
Those most likely to be targeted by new restrictions and policies.
We will tell their stories here.
Here.
Here on Free Speech TV.
We will lift their voices here.
Here on Free Speech TV.
In the difficult times ahead, know that we will be with you
24 hours a day.
Every day.
You are not alone.
You are not alone.
You are not alone.
There are millions of us.
Raising our voices and hearts together as one.
We've got your back.
We got your back.
Free Speech TV's got your back.
The revolution is in progress.
Welcome back. Let's see here. Anything Goes Friday. Tony in Huntsville, Alabama. Hey, Tony, what's up?
Hey, Tom. How you doing today?
Good. What's on your mind?
What I called about was I was watching Lawrence O'Donnell last night, and he said that the word is that Paul Ryan will not run in 2018.
Yeah,
I was wondering, had you heard anything about that? The point is, he can't take a chance of losing to the Democrat, is the thought, because he wants to run for president again.
Yeah, I think Randy Iron Stash. What's Randy's last name? Bryce? Bryce, yeah. Randy Bryce.
Yeah, Bryce.
He's, right now, it's looking like he's going to beat Paul Ryan. So I suspect that Paul Ryan is looking at that situation and looking at his former colleague Eric Cantor, who used to be the House Majority Whip, the #2 Republican in the House of Representatives. And, of course, Eric Cantor got his lunch, eaten by Dave Bratt in the primary. Now, this isn't a primary run. It's a general run. But what Eric Cantor did after he lost that election is he went off to a $5 million a year job as a lobbyist. And Paul Ryan's got a couple of young kids, and he's only making $180,000 a year as a congressman. And he literally could start at $5 million a year in any lobbying firm in Washington, D.C. So my guess is that he sees which way the wind is blowing. Trump is nuts. You got a crazy man as president. It's a lousy time to be in a senior position of leadership in the same party. There's a very good chance he won't win his own reelection. The problem that Paul Ryan has is that he's apparently been telling close friends about this for several weeks, maybe a month now. And one of those close friends leaked it to the press, and that's how it got into Lawrence O'Donnell. It was on all the other shows on MSNBC yesterday, too. And so now the problem that Paul Ryan has is he's asking a whole bunch of Republicans in the House of Representatives, including 14 Republicans who were elected by the state of California. He's asking them to walk the plank. He's asking them to vote for a piece of tax legislation that is so unpopular, even 3 out of 5 Republicans don't like it. 4 out of 5 Americans don't like it. It's an insanely unpopular piece of legislation. And he's asking these Republicans to walk the plank and then run for re-election. And now that they know that there's a chance, a probability, in fact, I would say, that Paul Ryan himself has already decided not to run for re-election, they're asking themselves, okay, do I do what Paul Ryan is doing and, give the billionaires their tax cut and then hope that they'll hire me as a lobbyist when I lose the election? Or do I fight against the tax bill and against the billionaires and, or do I simply just resign from Congress like Paul Ryan's doing? I mean, what do I do? And this is going to make it harder for him to get this vote passed in the House of Representatives, which is why he's denying these rumors.
Well, that was my next point, that they're committing suicide with this tax bill by doing that. I mean, it's the greatest thing that could ever happen to the country, I think, for them to not pass this bill, because Paul Ryan is supposed to be their leader, and we know that all senators aren't created equal. So just because he could go get a $5 million a year job doesn't mean that the next bread and butter senator actually can do that.
Right. Or a member of the House. Yeah, absolutely, Tony. Spot on. We'll see where this goes. I mean, we're in a real we'll see moment here right now. But Paul Ryan has to be, or at least the people around him have to be a little uncomfortable. He's going to be fine no matter what. I mean, if he loses the election, if he doesn't run for re-election, or if he or if he is re-elected, he's done so many favors for the Koch network and the billionaire class. They're going to take care of him really well for the rest of his life.
Yeah, I think he's going to be fine. Were you making a point about your dog?
Yeah, I was
earlier?
asking for advice.
Because I've done that once, and I got a dog for my dog, and the mistake I made was not making sure that the dogs had even temperament. Baxter's a Maltese, and we went and got Bruno, who was a pit, and Baxter could not stand Bruno, and he just ran from him most of the time, and he was miserable. We had to get rid of him.
Oh, that's
so the key is to get a dog with matching temperament.
Well, I mean, Blue is an Australian Shepherd, or a miniature Australian Shepherd, and which is a herding dog, and he's like super into herding and things like that, and hyper vigilant. And the dog that we're looking at is part Australian Shepherd and part Poodle, and I don't know if there's other parts in there, but has a very similar temperament, same size, and they both love to herd balls. So you think that'll work, Tony?
Yeah, that'll be great.
Okay.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks a lot, Tony. Great talking with you. I appreciate the information, appreciate the feedback. I just have 20 seconds here to the break, so I'll pick up the rest of your calls after the bottom of the hour break. The final concept that I'd wanted to share with you today is this thing called friluftsliv, which is a Nordic word. It's originally a Swedish word, but it's used in Norway, all across Scandinavia, that means basically living outdoors. And I really got this the other day. I noticed that I was picking up my phone just because I was bored. And, actually this is a longer rant. I'm going to share this with you at the top of the next hour because I've got a whole bunch of thoughts around this that I think are actually important. And I'm hitting a break. And I've got a bunch of calls here. So we'll pick up your calls for the rest of the hour. I'll share this idea of friluftsliv with you at the top of the next hour and get your thoughts on that too. So stick around. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
It's our Anything Goes weekend right here. Welcome back, Free Speech TV. It is hopefully the last day of our pledge drive. We'll see. If we don't raise enough money, we may have to slop it over into a few days next week. But yesterday was a pretty good day, and we're getting there. We really need to nail this thing down. Special thanks to folks who put together, in aggregate, another $10,000 matching donation for today. So your gifts up to $10,000 will be matched today. And the people who put this together, that is the donors who contributed, Karen Curlin, Tom Johnston, Mark Anderson, Mary Cameron Goodwin Rule, Diego May, Vincent Dabrowski, Genevieve Vaughn, and Kevin Caffrey. And thank you. Thank you so much for caring enough about this network to make a matching grant so that everybody else who makes a contribution today, if you make a $10 contribution, it becomes $20. If you make a $20 contribution, it becomes $40. If you make a $100 contribution, it becomes $200. If you make a $360 contribution, it becomes $720. It's whatever you give, it'll be doubled. So it's a great day to give. Plus, it's tax deductible. It's the end of the year. Plus, if you're thinking of making a matching contribution or anything like that, please let the folks know, 877-378-8669, and they'll connect you to the person who takes care of all that sort of thing. But our pledge drive is going well. We're behind, and it's been this way for like the last year, and I think that not every single pledge drive, but most of them have been soft. And I think it's because, so many of us just threw so much money into the last political campaigns, the last year and a half or so, 2 years of politics. Well, really 2 years, because, a lot of progressives threw money at Bernie during the primary. Well, a lot of progressives threw money at Hillary during the primary, too. And so, a lot of people are just kind of tapped out or whatever, but we still have to run a television network. We still have to keep the lights on and keep the electrons flowing and get the signal into your home and get it in the other platforms and venues. I know they're working on getting it on Apple TV. It's on Roku right now. Dish, Direct, Free Speech TV. It's on YouTube. It's on live stream. I mean, it's all over the place. So we need to spread the word, and please let your friends know about Free Speech TV. I mean, what a great thing that we have here. And Free Speech TV, I mean, we're trying to raise money just to keep the lights on. We're not yet to the point where we're talking about let's raise money for a promotion budget. So you are Free Speech TV's promotion budget. No exaggeration. And we need to promote this network. So in addition to making a call today, 877-378-8669, and making a contribution, consider also, particularly as we go into the holiday season here, we'll be getting together with family and friends. A great time to let them know about Free Speech TV. So please consider helping out in that regard too. If you make a contribution of $30 today, Free Speech TV will send you a Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker. Compliments of our friend Caleb. Thank you, Caleb, who printed them for us at no cost. If you make a $60 contribution today, you get the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker plus the Free Speech TV 16-month catalog. That could be $5 a month for a year, too. With a $10 a month for a year contribution, which is $120 or $120 up front, you get the bumper sticker, the catalog, or the calendar, and a copy of Ann Jones's book, Beyond the Messy Truth. With a $240 contribution, you get those three things, the bumper sticker, the calendar, Van Jones's book, plus Claudia Rankin's book, Citizen, an extraordinary look at race in America. With a $360 contribution, you get Van Jones's book, you get the bumper sticker and the calendar, Van Jones's book, Claudia Rankin's book, and my book, Unequal Protection, which I think is more relevant now than it's ever been, given what's going on with the Supreme Court and just, our rights in general. And with a $1,000 gift, come to Washington, D.C. or Portland, Oregon. Portland is a better bet. We're here a lot more. and we'll get together for lunch. I'd be glad to buy you lunch and look forward to it. I have met some just extraordinary people who have been, you know, some of our Free Speech TV donors. So those are the gifts. Those are the freebies. But what's really important is to keep this network going, is to keep Free Speech TV alive, to keep it, you know, and even beyond life support, to keep it vital, to keep it strong. And you know, I'm willing to push as hard as I can to make that happen. It's just, and I know many of you are too. And thank you so much to those of you who have already made a contribution. And if you haven't, please join the other 2% of Free Speech TV viewers who support this network. Thank you. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. The headline over at Mediaite says it all. 1 hour after trashing FBI, Trump tells them he has their back 100%. This guy, I mean, anything that comes out of his mouth, you have to fact check. His relationship to the truth is so fluid. It's bizarre. Jason in Vancouver, Washington. Hey, Jason, what's on your mind today?
Hey, I tried talking to my representative on a phone conference thing, and after she was done talking, the conversation was over, and she only got talked to a few. So I felt like those types of things should be well over an hour, so she could talk. But what I wanted to reference to was, I noticed that a lot of the people that were calling in, they're interested, but I don't feel like they're asking the right questions, and so she had her, you know, her answers, and it didn't really get anywhere. And then I find out that she's voting for the tax bill, and she's voting to get rid of public lands. And
presumably she's a Republican.
And yes, it's Jamie Herrera Bueller, 3rd District, Vancouver. Yes, she's Republican. And just, I guess what would be a good way to do when you're communicating with your representatives who are going against you, against the middle class, how do you nail them down?
You do it very well. First of all, that's more of a reporter's job than a citizen's job. I mean, if you're getting BS or evasion or, you know, the soft shoe from your elected official, then you just make a mental note never to vote for that person, you know, or to do everything you can to get somebody elected who's going to replace that person. But generally speaking, the rules of the road for calling or communicating with your member of Congress are very straightforward. When you call or mail or email their office, and written letters have the most impact, phone calls have the second most impact, email has increasingly very little impact, but some. But phone calls are really important and real easy to do. When you do that, keep it to one topic. If you've got 3 topics that are important to you, make 3 calls over a period of 3 days, but keep it to one topic, number one. Keep it to fewer than a half a dozen sentences. Make it ideally 2 or 3 sentences at the most. You know, hey, I just want to let the Congresswoman know that I am fully supportive of net neutrality, and I would like her to sign a, you know, under the Congressional Review Act, sign or vote for a resolution of disapproval so that we can undo what Ajit Pai did, for example. And just say that. They will write it down. They're basically, they're going to boil everything you say down to one little check mark or one little tick mark on a form. And so they're like taking a poll, essentially. And then finally, be respectful and be nice. I mean, you're going to be dealing with probably a person who's a volunteer or a minimum wage worker, you know, an intern, somebody who hopes to have a career in politics or whatever. But they're just starting out in all probability if they're answering the phones at the office as a member of Congress. And, you know, they're not there to fight with you. So, you know, just be nice to them. Jason, you got to move along.
And the other thing, Tom, real quick, is there's some things like the ammunition industry, industries of war. I feel like those should be nationalized so no one makes a profit off war. But to get to these other types of issues, we have to get like money out of politics or vote representatives in that can take care of the issues of the people. And I was just curious, like getting like progressives in and stuff, would the Sherman Act, you know, how much does America need to get the antitrust laws being enforced? Like, how bad is it?
Oh, it's one of the two keys to the whole thing. I mean, or one of three keys: corporate personhood, the idea that money is the same thing as free speech under the First Amendment. These were brought to you, you know, courtesy of the Supreme Court. And then you know, breaking up big companies. Reagan stopped the enforcement of the Sherman Act in '82, and it hasn't been seriously enforced since then, which is why in every industry in America, unlike many other developed countries, in every industry in America, you've got a half a dozen companies that basically control everything, and that's not a healthy thing. Paul in Edgewater, Florida. Hey, Paul, what's on your mind today?
Hello,
Paul,
Tom?
you're on the air.
Tom?
Yeah, you're on the air, Paul.
Tom, I can't hear you. If you're talking to me, I guess, in Edgewater, Florida, I can't hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now, Paul?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
you're on the air, Paul. Go for it.
Oh, okay. I think it was last week you touched upon how much of a benefit it is for folks to have their money in a credit union as opposed to a bank like Wells Fargo. And I was wondering if you could just briefly explain those benefits to us all once again. Thank you very much. I'll take my answer off the air.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Thanks for the call and thanks for listening to SiriusXM. When you put your money in a bank, first of all, the banks have this new provision, thanks to the Republicans in the early 2000s, or after 2009, actually. The banks can now do what's called bail-ins. So if they have a crisis, instead of having the Fed bail them out, they can take your deposits and use that to bail themselves out. I don't believe credit unions can do that. Possibly they can, but I'm not, a super geeky knowledgeable person on the difference between a bank and credit union at that level of granularity. But there are some very substantial differences that are fairly obvious. But the thing is, even if a credit union could do a bail-in under the new rules, and as I said, I don't believe they can, but even if they could, they wouldn't, because credit unions can't engage and don't engage in gambling in the stock market, which is how, or the real estate market for that matter, which is how the big banks get caught. They're making billions of dollars in profits gambling with your money in the stock market, the derivative market, the housing market, the insurance market. And when one of those markets goes south, the bank can take your money with it, number one. Number two, when you put your money in a bank, there is a profit that is generated as a consequence of your money being held by the bank. Banking is a profitable business. When you put your money in a regular commercial bank or in a for-profit bank, even a locally owned for-profit bank, the profit from that money is going to go to the stockholders of the bank. When you put your money in a credit union, the profit from that money goes to the credit union. And credit unions are nonprofit organizations, so they don't distribute that money as higher paychecks for the CEOs or for the stockholders. There are no stockholders, and the CEOs are credit union members who've simply decided to run for president of the credit union and work their way up, as it were, but they're not super well paid. So what the credit unions do is they use that money to reduce their fees or increase the interest that they pay. So the bottom line is it's always a benefit, or typically almost always a benefit, to be banking with a credit union as opposed to a big commercial bank. Mark Taylor Canfield in Seattle. Hey, Mark, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom, I really want to encourage people to donate to Free Speech TV. It's more important than ever that we support independent media right now. And also, I'm writing over at Daily Kos. I have an article over there today about media democracy. It's got, I think, 150 comments or something. So apparently I'm sparking some discussion. And I'm also dealing with this over at my program on YouTube called the MTC Report. But I wanted to tell you a quick little story about my experience with the FCC. Because when Michael Powell was the head of the FCC and Democrats Copps and Adelstein were commissioners, Copps and Adelstein set up a series of hearings around the country about corporate media ownership consolidation, which is also a very big issue. This is what happens when you have the foxes watching the hen house, right? When the regulators are actually on the corporate side of things.
Right.
Well, the Republicans on the FCC are all about allowing media monopolies. So as a reporter for the Pacifica Radio Network, which was Free Speech Radio News at the time, I interviewed a group of professors from places like the University of Delaware, Fordham University, University of Michigan, who had been commissioned by the FCC to do research on the effects of increased corporate media ownership consolidation. Mm-hmm. But when I testified before the FCC on this topic, holding those reports in my hand, the FCC commissioners claimed not to know anything about the reports that they themselves had commissioned.
Whoa.
And the reports, of course, showed that corporate media ownership consolidation results in less ownership of media by women and minorities, less local news coverage, et cetera, et cetera. So the professors Napoli and Janich complained to me that they will never, ever do commissioned research work for the Federal Communications Commission again because their research was suppressed. And according to Professor Janich, it may have actually been a violation of administrative law when you commission scientists to work on a report for you and then you bury that report and refuse to make it public. That's suppression of academic research, and it's totally unethical. And I wouldn't be surprised that it's happening today, but it definitely happened when Michael Powell was the head of the FCC, and it's only gotten worse since then, Tom. We really need to save our democracy, and one of the things that's so important is net neutrality. And also this idea of corporate media monopolies. I mean, pretty soon we're going to have one company like Disney or Fox, and Rupert Murdoch owning everything that gets broadcast, except for maybe, the programs that you do in Free Speech TV and some other independents. Yeah. But for the most part, what people are getting is owned by a very small group of
well, and the result of this big new Disney merger is going to be the Fox stockholders are going to end up owning 25% of Disney, which is pretty amazing. And
yeah, it's like one company.
Yeah,
it's just crazy, Tom. Yeah. It's not what the FCC
it is anti-competitive.
Regulate.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It is anti-competitive. Mark, thanks a lot for the call. Good talking with you. Yeah, it is nuts. Anyhow, it's Anything Goes Friday here on the Thom Hartmann Program. We'll be back with more of your calls right after this. Stick around.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
And we're going to be talking, too, about the benefits of getting outside in a few minutes. Welcome back. Damon watching Free Speech TV on a Roku box in Las Vegas. Hey, Damon, what's up? Damon?
Yeah, how you doing? Can you hear me? I have you on speakerphone.
Yeah.
I could take you off, but I don't know which.
No, your speakerphone is fine. What's on your mind, Damon?
Okay, this is very simple. I've been in sales for 30 years, and I one of the things I learned was Bruce Lee always talked about the way he would defeat his enemies is by using their energy against them.
Right.
So we as progressives use logic against emotion, and they'll never understand it. What we need to use is emotion against emotion. So, for example, I was on Twitter yesterday, and all the people who supported Roy Moore said that they lost through illegal vote. So the next time one of them call in or somebody's talking to somebody saying that we lost through illegal vote, and you just say, terrific, we got to stomp this out. Do you have a picture of the 407 buses or any of the 22,000 illegals that they voted so we can get this on the internet? In other words, use their arguments against them.
Yeah.
It's illogical. There's no way 22,000 people showed up at 407 buses in Birmingham, Alabama, and voted, got back on the buses and left without anyone noticing. But because they're emotional, they don't think of it that way.
Yeah. Good point. And excellent point. Yes, I'm horrified. By the way, where's the evidence? I like it.
Exactly. But the point is that you must answer their question whether you're exactly right, and then use something emotional against them.
Right. No, I got it.
Like how they always say, we're going to make America great again. You would say, that's terrific. We need to do that. By the way, when did America stop being great?
Yeah, there you go. Damon, excellent points. Thank you for the call. Sheena in Prairie Grove, Arkansas. Hey, Sheena, what's on your mind?
Hey, Tom. I heard you ask for a couple of dog training tips, and I actually have a no-kill 501c3 dog rescue here in Arkansas.
Oh, good on you.
Yeah. I just went blank. The best training tool I've ever got was a 49-cent water squirt bottle from Walmart. It's a great training tool. If Blue starts acting up, you just give him a little squirt.
Mm-hmm.
Also, what dogs mostly fight about is food and bones.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, having toys laying around is fine, but any kind of like bones. I also feed my dogs separately, or food will really get them fighting. Right. A good bonding tool for them is for you and Louise to take walks and walk them, you know, together. That's a great bonding tool. And but I would say, yeah, go get the squirt water bottle. It's an amazing tool.
Better than air horns or shock collars or any of the other stuff that everybody's advertising?
No, a shock collar goes right in the trash.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, we used to have a for our cats. Actually, we had an attack cat, and Louise had one of those soaker. You know, it's not a 49-cent toy. It's more like a $12 toy. You know, it looks like a you know, yeah, there's a super soaker. You know, it looks like a assault weapon, and she could shoot a shot of water 20 feet across the room and zap the cat when the cat was misbehaving.
It works great for dogs too. And
it really works.
Now,
yeah,
all I have to do is when they're acting up is just pick it up,
and they know.
They look at it,
yeah.
and they start.
There you go, Sheena. Thank you for the call, and thank you for the suggestions. It's great. I appreciate it. Thank you. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. Rob in Mountain Iron, Minnesota. Hey, Rob, what's on your mind today?
Greetings, Tom. I'm season's greetings, and got a question for you real quick before I get to my point. How do you tell when Donald Trump is lying?
His lips are moving?
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Anyway, that makes life a whole lot easier.
Yeah.
Anyway, my point is this $1.5 trillion that they're talking about as far as a tax cut, the number is so large, I doubt most people can be able to actually figure what they're really talking about, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of, I have a hard time trying to figure it out myself, but, $1.5 trillion, that's 1,500 billion.
Right.
Okay, so now that we got that, it's where, then there's like 200 million workers in America. I'm using general figures, round figures, just to be able to get a good idea of what's going on. But 200 million workers, you multiply that times 5, you get to 1 billion. So now you got 1,500 billions times 5. That's 7,500. You multiply 200 million times 7,500. So that's $7,500 that every average working person in America would receive under this tax plan if they were distributing it to the middle class.
Right.
Now the whole thing is Republicans, Trump, they're talking about giving the average person like $1,000. That's only $200 billion out of the $1.5 trillion. Where's the other $1.3 trillion going? It sure ain't going to the middle class.
Well, and let me give you a few more details, Rob, to put into your biocomputer here. Over a 10-year period, the top 1% is going to receive over $5.5 trillion, and the bottom 99% are going to see their taxes go up by a little over $3.4 trillion. And, in order to transfer that money to the top 1%, and the balance between the two is what's going to be added to the debt, to the federal debt, to the U.S. federal debt. So really, what you should be looking at is either $5 trillion or maybe even the $10 trillion, which is the $5 trillion that they're getting from all the rest of us, minus, plus the consequential impact on the economy of all the rest of us not having that $5 trillion to spend. Instead, it's going into the hands of very wealthy people who tend to save that money, and and therefore it's not productive. And then you're looking.
You're an average working person. Louise is an average working person. If you were going to get a Christmas present this year between the two of you, $15,000 to stick under the tree, I bet you'd even say thank you to Donald Trump.
Yeah, but that's not exactly. But that's not what's going to happen. And just to further correct your numbers, Rob, I believe that there's 140 million people who file tax returns in the United States. So the U.S. workforce is probably around 150 million.
Well, again, then that means that the $7,500 is probably closer to $10,000.
Exactly.
So it's where, again, you know, I mean, this
we're being robbed even worse than your original math. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
you know,
I got it.
I'm giving them a break.
Yeah, you are. Rob, I got to move along, but thank you. It's great having somebody who knows how to do math on the show. Nick in Brighton, Mass. Hey, Nick, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom, do you have a blue healer?
I don't know what a healer is.
I think it's a certain type of Australian Shepherd.
Oh,
I don't have any advice for you. I don't
know.
Yeah, I love that breed and was hoping to get one myself.
Yeah,
but
Blue is a
anyways,
miniature Australian Shepherd. He has one blue eye and one brown eye, which is why we named him Blue. But that's all I know about him.
Gotcha. Anyways, I'm calling about Nikki Haley's comments. Hopefully I'm not misquoting her too bad, but she said something around the lines of hard to find a terrorist organization that doesn't have Iran's hands all over it. Is there any evidence for this, and why do we continue to poke the Middle East like this? I mean, she's supposed to be a diplomat. It doesn't seem like this is diplomacy at all, and
Right.
I'll take the answer offline.
The Shia governments, which would be Yemen. Actually, it's not even the Shia government there. It's a Shia, the Houthi uprising. It's a movement, a Shia movement. And in Iran, of course, it's a Shia government, are hated by the Sunni governments, like Saudi Arabia. And so, in my opinion, what Nikki Haley is doing is she's carrying water for the Saudis and the Israelis. Benjamin Netanyahu hates the Iranians and has made basically peace with Saudi Arabia and some of the other Sunni Arab nations, Egypt, Qatar, UAE, Dubai, made peace with those countries because the Sunnis hate the Shia too. And so here we are demonizing the Shia. Number one, Nikki Haley is inserting us into a Shia-Sunni food fight that's been going on for, close to 1,000 years that we should go out of our way to not be in the middle of. Keep in mind the Shia now, via Iran, largely control Iraq. We took down Saddam Hussein, was a Sunni, but Iraq is a majority Shia country. And the first business to open in Iraq after we turned the country over to its own government was the Bank of Iran, the Bank of Tehran, opened in downtown Baghdad. And the Iranians are doing big business in Iraq right now. So that's number one. We're inserting ourselves into that conflict in a way that really, really may hurt us. And number two, by trashing Iran after we cut this nuclear weapons deal with Iran, what Nikki Haley is saying to Kim Jong-un is don't even think about making a deal with the United States, even if Russia, China, England, Germany, France are involved, because those are the countries that cut the deal with Iran. Right? You got the G5 plus one. It's we cut a deal with Iran, with Russia, with China, with the UK, with Germany, and I believe with France, and they're all signatories to that deal too. So what Nikki Haley is saying to Kim Jong-un is the United States is not a reliable partner when it comes to deal making. We will put politics above what's best for our country, above what's best for the world. We'll put politics above absolutely everything else. And this is the insane danger of this kind of rhetoric that Trump and the hard right and again, Netanyahu and Saudi Arabia are pitching that Iran is the center of all evil and all this sort of thing. Iran may not be the world's best player, but if you want to track responsibility for terrorism, you're not going to find. I mean, yes, Iran supports Hezbollah. Hezbollah has a role in Lebanon, and Hezbollah has supported the Palestinians. And in fact, there's a big Hezbollah component in Gaza, which is, of course, why Netanyahu is so upset about it. But that's not the beginning and end of the whole thing.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
The Thom Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by the Aiden Forecast, an investment newsletter with weekly updates of leading market indicators and a monthly deep dive into what the details of the economy and the markets mean for investors and retirees. On the web at aidenmarkets.com.
Wines have some of the highest pesticide levels in our food chain. This hour brought to you by ecowine.com. Pesticide-free wines, organic wines, imported from France by the Organic Wine Company, ecowine.com.
Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by Super Beets. Super Beets are sourced from non-GMO beets, and they're packed with dietary nitrates, helping to produce nitric oxide for more energy, stamina, and support for healthy blood pressure levels naturally. For more information, call 800-223-8242
or visit tomsbeets.com.
Welcome back. Free Speech TV, it is hopefully the last day of our pledge drive. We'll see. If we don't raise enough money, we may have to slop it over into a few days next week. But yesterday was a pretty good day, and we're getting there. We really need to nail this thing down. Special thanks to folks who put together, in aggregate, another $10,000 matching donation for today. So your gifts up to $10,000 will be matched today, and the people who put this together, that is the donors who contributed, Karen Curlin, Tom Johnston, Mark Anderson, Mary Cameron Goodwin Rule, Diego May, Vincent Dabrowski, Genevieve Vaughn, and Kevin Caffrey. And thank you. Thank you so much for caring enough about this network to make a matching grant so that everybody else who makes a contribution today, if you make a $10 contribution, it becomes $20. If you make a $20 contribution, it becomes $40. If you make a $100 contribution, it becomes $200. If you make a $360 contribution, it becomes $720. It's whatever you give, it'll be doubled. So it's a great day to give. Plus, it's tax deductible. It's the end of the year. Plus, if you're thinking of making a matching contribution or anything like that, please let the folks know, 877-378-8669, and they'll connect you to the person who takes care of all that sort of thing. But our pledge drive is going well. We're behind, and it's been this way for like the last year, and I think that not every single pledge drive, but most of them have been soft. And I think it's because, so many of us just threw so much money into the last political campaigns, the last year and a half or so, 2 years of politics. Well, really 2 years, because, a lot of progressives threw money at Bernie during the primary. Well, a lot of progressives threw money at Hillary during the primary, too. And so, a lot of people are just kind of tapped out or whatever, but we still have to run a television network. We still have to keep the lights on and keep the electrons flowing and get the signal into your home and get it in the other platforms and venues. I know they're working on getting it on Apple TV. It's on Roku right now. Dish, Direct, Free Speech TV. It's on YouTube. It's on live stream. I mean, it's all over the place. So we need to spread the word, and please let your friends know about Free Speech TV. I mean, what a great thing that we have here. And Free Speech TV, I mean, we're trying to raise money just to keep the lights on. We're not yet to the point where we're talking about let's raise money for a promotion budget. So you are Free Speech TV's promotion budget. No exaggeration. And we need to promote this network. So in addition to making a call today, 877-378-8669, and making a contribution, consider also, particularly as we go into the holiday season here, we'll be getting together with family and friends, a great time to let them know about Free Speech TV. So please consider helping out in that regard too. If you make a contribution of $30 today, Free Speech TV will send you a Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker, compliments of our friend Caleb. Thank you, Caleb, who printed them for us at no cost. If you make a $60 contribution today, you get the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker plus the Free Speech TV 16-month catalog. That could be $5 a month for a year too. With a $10 a month for a year contribution, which is $120 or $120 up front, you get the bumper sticker, the catalog, or the calendar, and a copy of Ann Jones's book, Beyond the Messy Truth. With a $240 contribution, you get those three things, the bumper sticker, the calendar, Ann Jones's book, plus Claudia Rankine's book, Citizen, an extraordinary look at race in America. With a $360 contribution, you get Van Jones's book, you get the bumper sticker and the calendar, Van Jones's book, Claudia Rankine's book, and my book, Unequal Protection, which I think is more relevant now than it's ever been, given what's going on with the Supreme Court and just, you know, our rights in general. And with a $1,000 gift, come to Washington, D.C. or Portland, Oregon. Portland is a better bet. We're here a lot more. And we'll get together for lunch. I'd be glad to buy you lunch and look forward to it. I have met some just extraordinary people who have been, you know, some of our Free Speech TV donors. So those are the gifts. Those are the freebies. But what's really important is to keep this network going, is to keep Free Speech TV alive, to keep it, you know, and even beyond life support, to keep it vital, to keep it strong. And you know, I'm willing to push as hard as I can to make that happen. It's just, and I know many of you are too. And thank you so much to those of you who have already made a contribution. And if you haven't, please join the other 2% of Free Speech TV viewers who support this network. Thank you.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. I was telling you about, I started to tell you about friluftsliv, which is an expression that literally translates as open air living. There's a great article about this in today's BBC by Maddie Savage, bbc.com, I believe, or .co.uk. It's titled Friluftsliv, the Nordic concept of getting outdoors. And Louise and I lived in Germany for a year, 1986, 87. In a fairly rural part of Germany. We lived in a little town called Steinach that had maybe, I don't know, 15, 20,000 people. And the next town over was Gumpersdorf, which had maybe 100 people, maybe even 50. And then Kulmbach, where they make a lot of beer, but, you know, which fairly small town too. And we were surrounded by forest, by the German forest, the Franconian forest, the Frankenwald. And every day, not just on weekends, but every day, you could walk out into the woods, and I did virtually every day. You could go out and walk in the woods and see all these people from town, you know, middle-aged people, older people, young people, a lot of older people. They're particularly into this. But young people, I mean, there's all this whole network of trails through the forest, and they were well marked, actually, and well maintained, because there's this European notion, or at least this Northern and Western European notion, that being out in the open air, being out in nature, is a healthy thing for you physically and psychologically and spiritually. And that has absolutely been my experience. And in this article by the BBC, Maddie Savage writes, it's -2 degrees Celsius. Frost-tipped grass lines the hiking trails snaking through the forest in Ersvik, a Stockholm suburb on the edge of the Swedish capital's technology and science hub, Kista. Yet despite the frigid temperatures, there's a steady footfall of workers and joggers out and about during their lunch break. We do it year-round, says Tina Holm, a scientist at the Nordic headquarters of a pharmaceutical and cosmetics firm, Perrigo. You get so much energy from it, she says. We have a saying here in Sweden, there's no such thing as bad weather, there's only bad clothes. We've got that here in Portland, too, right? Throughout the long and rainy winter, you see somebody with an umbrella, you know they're not from Oregon. Everybody learns how to wear a waterproof hoodie. Anyway, they have these clubs. In Sweden, has 10 million people. There are 25 nonprofit associations anchored to Friluftsliv, or however you say it, 1.7 million memberships. About a third of Swedes engage in outdoor activities at least once a week. More than half of the population have access to a summer home or a countryside on the coast, in the countryside or on the coast. Many Scandinavian employers also incentivize staff to spend time outside during their working hours. And the story I started to tell you, where I'm going with this, is I had noticed over the last couple of years that it seemed to me, it's really hard for us all to judge, our own quality of life and the nature of our work and our world and our friendships and everything else from inside our own heads. We do not have an objective observer status or stance. Everything is subjective. Everything is, we're looking at it through the lens of ourselves. Given that, and all the bias that might be intrinsic to that, what I had noticed is over the last couple of years, it just seemed to me that time was going faster and faster. I was getting less and less done, and my life seemed to be getting more and more frantic. Now, granted, up until just a few months ago, up until the end of September, I was also doing a television show in the evening. So, our show prep, Louise and my show prep, we would start at 6 or 7 in the morning. This is when we were on the East Coast, looking through the news, finding out what's going on in the world, putting stuff on the one sheet, interacting with Sean about guests and shows and topics. And our workday ended at 8:30, 9 o'clock at night after the TV show was over, and we had broken down from that and made tentative plans for the next morning. So our workday was 7 to 9. It was a 14-hour workday. Now, just doing the radio show, we're down to maybe a 8 or 9 or 10-hour workday. Some days 7 or 8 hours. But I don't think that was it, because we moved to Portland, and I thought, okay, this is great. My workday is cutting down to a reasonable number of hours. I should feel less frenetic. And I was sitting in the living room of our new home here in Portland, and the TV was off, and I picked up the phone to just do something, right? Okay, oh geez, I've got the Financial Times on here, the New York Times, the Washington Post, I've got a solitaire game, I've got, email, I've got, there's all kinds of stuff I can do, right? And I suddenly realized I have stopped being bored. I have stopped, in the last couple of years, I have stopped something that was an important part of my whole entire life, which was just sitting there going, okay, this is boring, but I'm here, and I'm alive, and I'm awake, and I'm present. And that mindfulness, that just kind of bringing your attention to the moment, that idea of, oh yeah, here I am. To paraphrase Ram Dass, where are you? What time it is? What time is it? I am here. It is now. I realized, I started meditating when I was 15 years old. It had always been an important part of my life, and I realized in the last couple of years it had really taken 20th place in my hierarchy of priorities, and that my phone was constantly dragging me out of the present and into past, future, or entertainment. And I was not living in the moment. And so I looked at the phone for a second, and I set it back down, and I said, you know, I'm just going to sit here for a few minutes and just be in this chair. And it was the beginning, and this was just a few weeks ago, it was the beginning of a process of realizing that my mental chemistry has been altered by the use of a smartphone over the last 5 years or 10 years or however long I've had one. This is, I think, my 5th or 6th smartphone, although a couple of them died because they got wet. But so I'm not sure exactly how long I've had, you know, one of these contraptions, but it has, in fact, I noticed it when I was laying in bed. In fact, I think I told this story on the air. I was laying in bed reading a book, and I was reading a Robert Parker novel, and my brain would go someplace, and I would constantly try to bring myself back to the novel, but sometimes it would go someplace, and I'd find myself, and I'd realize 10 minutes later, hey, I've been playing solitaire for 5 minutes, you know, or free cell or whatever. Which is, you know, what I tend to do when I get bored. And I'm making a conscious effort not to do that anymore. To just be present, to be once again comfortable with being bored. Or when I am bored, to say, hey, you know, great time to take the dog for a walk. Let's go outside. There's a little park right, you know, 50 yards from our home. Let's take the dog for a walk. Let's, you know, let's sit outside. Let me go on the back deck and just, you know, look at nature. I think there's something to this. And I think it's actually something that's very important. And it's something that we are losing as a culture as we disconnect ourselves from nature. And so it's this two-part thing. And the BBC's article is really only talking about one part of it, which is connecting with the natural world, connecting with the outdoors, connecting with the great outdoors. But I think that there's also that connecting with being present. And our phones are constantly dragging us away from this. And then I look at people who are giving smartphones to their 7-year-olds, and I get it, you know, having your kid having a phone so you can call them. But the smartphone, all those features.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Are they going to grow up literally never knowing how to be bored, or always dealing with their boredom by burying themselves in their phone? And what does that mean? And welcome back. Let's see here. Patrick in Seaside, California. Hey, Patrick, thanks for watching Free Speech TV. What's on your mind today?
Greetings from May Brussels country, Tom. I wanted to talk about the lawsuits against the FCC's decision to kill net neutrality, but I wanted to say first off,
Patrick, before you do that, you always, when you call, you always say greetings from, it sounds like Mabe Russell country. I don't know what that is.
May Brussels, the political researcher that moved up here from L.A. Her father was Rabbi Magnin. She was basically, she was one of the first researchers to investigate the Kennedy assassinations, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, and basically, you know, the how they were all tied to Project Paperclip, you know, kind of convolutedly tied, and international fascism. But she was a longtime resident in the Monterey Peninsula.
Fascinating. Okay, back to your
I
FCC.
wanted to talk about the lawsuits of against the FCC's decision, but before I do, I wanted to say that I, for the very first time, and I've wanted to do it for the longest time, and it's never been the right timing financially, I donated to Free Speech TV today for the first time ever.
Good on you, Patrick. Thank you.
I did the $360. I donated twice. I did the $360 Thom Hartmann package and the $150 Democracy Now! Package.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I actually did something worthwhile today. And I can go months, even years, without having that feeling.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Patrick. That's very considerate. But you want to talk about the FCC?
I wanted to ask, well, first of all, I've been posting on my page. I wanted to suggest to people, because Verizon, AT&T, and Comcast are the big three who spent a combined total of $600 million over the last 10 years to kill net neutrality. I'm trying to convince people, or I'm trying to urge people on my page to basically lose AT&T and Verizon and switch to T-Mobile, and if you have AT&T or Comcast, switch to Dish.
Yeah, T-Mobile is a German-based company, actually. There's been a couple of attempts to buy it by American companies, but I have T-Mobile, and I was really impressed with their service when I was in Europe the last time. They're all over Europe.
I wanted to know if your thoughts about these lawsuits do you think these big telecom companies are going to basically act like the Republicans in Congress and try and just gorge themselves and get away with every type of offense and criminality they can until we stop them? Or do
of course. Where do you think the Republicans learned it?
Pardon me?
Where do you think the Republicans learned it? They're just imitating corporate America.
Yeah, good point. I'm just wondering if they're going to be just start immediately to try and block us from progressive sites like Common Dreams and
it's not going to be immediate. It's going to take probably a year. First of all, they're going to wait until the legal challenges shake out and whether or not there's a congressional resolution of disapproval with regard to the Congressional Review Act. And
do you think they'll? So in other words, do you think that these lawsuits will basically hold them back for a while?
Yes. Yes.
Also, I wanted to make a request. I don't know if when you're writing books, if you basically have multiple books that you're writing at the same time, but I wanted to put in the suggestion of writing a comprehensive history or maybe an anthology with other contributors, other writers, of the history of the Libertarian Party, because I think it's desperately needed. I talk to people who think that it's okay to be a Libertarian because at least I'm not a Republican.
Yeah, no, it was created of, by, and for the billionaires. Thank you, Patrick.
Hi, I'm Heather with Free Speech TV. Your support, whether through giving of donations, volunteering, or even spreading the word, has made it possible for the only independent progressive news network to sustain for more than 20 years. Now, you can give to Free Speech TV through the Branch of Gratitude. This program is a sustainable way to give that reduces waste through paper mailing, postage, and staff hours. By choosing to participate in the Branch of Gratitude, you are joining hands with the socially conscious community and sending a message to the world that Free Speech TV is not only here to stay, it is here to thrive. Please call 877-378-8669 or go online to freespeech.org. Make a difference and join the Branch of Gratitude today.
Dave in Buffalo. Hey, Dave, what's on your mind today?
Hello, Tom. Thank you. I'd like to wish you and your family a safe and happy holiday season.
Thank you.
About your dogs, or for your dogs, they have smart collars now that determine if they've gotten enough exercise for the day, and they have GPS in case they get lost. One of them is called Link AKC.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Two items. Flynn, if he had given a lawyer by Trump, and because he was charged with only felonies, and he could have gotten out of the felonies, and if Trump had held him tight and got his lawyer, couldn't he have put 1 degree of separation between him and some of the trouble with a pardon because of the felonies? And then with Alabama, didn't the Republican Party suppress the vote themselves by saying that there's no there there? How do you get people to come out when you're constantly telling them there's no problem?
By no problem, you mean that Roy Moore was just fine, thank you very much?
Yeah, the left is just all fake news and there's no there there.
Right. Yeah, I'm not real sure. The principal voter suppression that happened in Alabama, and the Alabama Republicans were quite clear about this, several of them were on the record, was over 100,000, I think the number was over 120,000 Alabamans lost their right to vote, people who were already registered voters, because they don't have current, active, legal, state-issued photo ID.
They may be too old, they no longer drive a car. They may be too young, they haven't bought a car, they don't have a driver's license. They may be people who are, live in big cities and have, in downtown Birmingham, don't need a car. There's a good public transportation system, whatever. And it's mostly minorities, elderly people, and young people. And that was a consequential voter suppression. I get the logic of what you're saying, and I'm not sure what impact it had with regard to Michael Flynn. I frankly don't know what I do, because I don't know enough. None of us know enough of the details of what Flynn did, what he was charged with, what he was potentially charged with, versus what he ended up pleading guilty to. So I just don't know the answer to the question, Dave. Thanks for the call. Rob Sendera Rob in Guys Mills, Pennsylvania. Hey, Rob, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. I wanted to talk to people about a plan I developed. I thought at least years ago that one of the major things wrong with the country was I was sick of our U.S. manufacturing being destroyed, and we're creating Chinese landfills all over America.
Right.
To create jobs, I chose a different, more creative pattern based on the story of Henry Ford's story. I watched this on the Ford and the Man and the Machine. I must have watched that movie 85 times, realizing it held the secret. And what I want to do is there are about 60 million people on Social Security, and probably about 50 million of those need some sort of transportation. They're on guaranteed incomes. And I wanted to start with working with Ford Motor Company and only the big three American motor companies. I've been building engines for 47 years. I want to know how people would feel about it if they could buy a brand new car that the government made the funds available to them, and that car got like 125 miles per gallon, and it didn't put out any emissions. Or I have another invention that they could get an electric car and charge it at home for free, so it wouldn't cost them nothing. The thing I'm looking at here is when Ford did this, there were people actually shooting each other in Detroit, fighting for jobs. It was so bad. He was the man, and he was kind of stunned. But the thing is, Detroit, in my mind, is the center nucleus of the American manufacturing industry. It goes from there down to smaller plants, and it spiders right to the backyard guy with the junkyard in his backyard. And this goes out to Ohio, Indiana, Wisconsin, Illinois.
Rob, what's your point?
Well, you people think we could fix America by selling 50 million people brand new cars that we guarantee them loans. And
yeah, I don't think we need to guarantee loans, Rob. The solution to America's manufacturing problems, or the solution to middle class stagnation, wage stagnation, isn't pushing people deeper into debt. The solution is changing the rules of the game by which big companies play the game of business in the United States.
Well, I understand that. I would do that too.
As long as foreign companies are manufacturing in the United States and they're refusing to allow unions into their manufacturing facilities, they're going to right to work for less states. As long as the American manufacturing companies keep playing games with their unions, as long as we are still part of the World Trade Organization, and we've joined the WTO and all that, and NAFTA and everything else. As long as we maintain these trade agreements that allow Korean and Japanese and German cars to come into the United States without tariffs, whereas Germany, Japan, and South Korea all have tariffs on American cars. They do it through their VAT tax, but it's functionally a tariff. As long as that's going on, our labor force is screwed, and our marketplace is going to be filled with non-American cars. And not just cars, it's true of electronics and everything else. We've got to change the rules of the game, Rob. Thanks for the call. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
See, people keep looking at problems that are the result of systemic, situations and thinking that there are micro cures. We need to cure the whole system. Welcome back, Free Speech TV. It is hopefully the last day of our pledge drive. We'll see. If we don't raise enough money, we may have to slop it over into a few days next week. But yesterday was a pretty good day, and we're getting there. We really need to nail this thing down. Special thanks to folks who put together, in aggregate, another $10,000 matching donation for today. So your gifts up to $10,000 will be matched today. And the people who put this together, that is the donors who contributed, Karen Curlin, Tom Johnston, Mark Anderson, Mary Cameron Goodwin Rule, Diego May, Vincent Dabrowski, Genevieve Vaughn, and Kevin Caffrey. And thank you. Thank you so much for caring enough about this network to make a matching grant so that everybody else who makes a contribution today, if you make a $10 contribution, it becomes $20. If you make a $20 contribution, it becomes $40. If you make a $100 contribution, it becomes $200. If you make a $360 contribution, it becomes $720. It's whatever you give, it'll be doubled. So it's a great day to give. Plus, it's tax deductible. It's the end of the year. Plus, if you're thinking of making a matching contribution or anything like that, please let the folks know, 877-378-8669, and they'll connect you to the person who takes care of all that sort of thing. But our pledge drive is going well. We're behind, and it's been this way for like the last year, and I think that not every single pledge drive, but most of them have been soft. And I think it's because so many of us just threw so much money into the last political campaigns, the last year and a half or so, 2 years of politics. Well, really 2 years, because a lot of progressives threw money at Bernie during the primary. Well, a lot of progressives threw money at Hillary during the primary too, and so a lot of people are just kind of tapped out or whatever, but we still have to run a television network. We still have to keep the lights on and keep the electrons flowing and get the signal into your home and get it in the other platforms and venues. I know they're working on getting it on Apple TV. It's on Roku right now. Dish, Direct, Free Speech TV. It's on YouTube. It's on live stream. I mean, it's all over the place. So we need to spread the word, and please let your friends know about Free Speech TV. I mean, what a great thing that we have here. And Free Speech TV, I mean, we're trying to raise money just to keep the lights on. We're not yet to the point where we're talking about let's raise money for a promotion budget. So you are Free Speech TV's promotion budget. No exaggeration. And we need to promote this network. So in addition to making a call today, 877-378-8669, and making a contribution, consider also, particularly as we go into the holiday season here, we'll be getting together with family and friends, a great time to let them know about Free Speech TV. So please consider helping out in that regard too. If you make a contribution of $30 today, Free Speech TV will send you a Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker, compliments of our friend Caleb. Thank you, Caleb. Who printed them for us at no cost. If you make a $60 contribution today, you get the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker plus the Free Speech TV 16-month catalog. That could be $5 a month for a year too. With a $10 a month for a year contribution, which is $120 or $120 up front, you get the bumper sticker, the catalog, or the calendar, and a copy of Ann Jones's book, Beyond the Messy Truth. With a $240 contribution, you get those three things, the bumper sticker, the calendar, Van Jones's book, plus Claudia Rankin's book, Citizen, an extraordinary look at race in America. With a $360 contribution, you get Van Jones's book, you get the bumper sticker and the calendar, Van Jones's book, Claudia Rankin's book, and my book, Unequal Protection, which I think is more relevant now than it's ever been, given what's going on with the Supreme Court and just, our rights in general. And with a $1,000 gift, come to Washington, D.C. or Portland, Oregon. Portland is a better bet. We're here a lot more.
and we'll get together for lunch. I'd be glad to buy you lunch and look forward to it. I have met some just extraordinary people who have been, you know, some of our Free Speech TV donors. So those are the gifts. Those are the freebies. But what's really important is to keep this network going, is to keep Free Speech TV alive, to keep it, you know, and even beyond life support, to keep it vital, to keep it strong. And you know, I'm willing to push as hard as I can to make that happen. It's just, and I know many of you are too. And thank you so much to those of you who have already made a contribution. And if you haven't, please join the other 2% of Free Speech TV viewers who support this network. Thank you. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you, and TJ in Oak Lawn, Illinois. Hey, TJ, what's on your mind today?
Oh, hi, Tom. It's an honor to finally talk to you, a first-time caller.
Thank you.
I have a question. All of those people on the FCC board commission were appointed by President Obama. Now, what I'd like to know is why is it that this killing of net neutrality didn't take place during the Obama administration, and what is it that Trump did that made it possible now?
Right. Good question. President Obama in 2012, I believe it was, appointed Ajit Pai to the FCC. He had been a lawyer for the FCC prior to that, and of course he'd been a lawyer for Verizon prior to that. And he did so because the FCC, there are 5 chairs, there are 5 seats in the group that basically rules the FCC. And whoever is president at the time, those 5 seats, there's supposed to be 2 Democratic seats, 2 Republican seats, and then the chairperson is appointed by the president, and which becomes the tie-breaking vote. And of course the president can replace the other 2 seats. And the problem that Trump was facing is that when you appoint a chairperson to the FCC who is not already a member of those 5 seats on the FCC, that person has to go through congressional approval. The Senate has to approve the appointment. And Trump was pretty sure that if he tried to put some industry toady in there as commissioner of the FCC, it wouldn't get past the Democrats in the Senate. So President Obama had put Pai on the 5-panel commission, not as the chairperson, but he put Pai on the commission because a Republican seat opened up while Obama was president. And even though Obama was president, it was a Republican seat on the FCC. So Mitch McConnell recommended Ajit Pai, and President Obama took Mitch McConnell's recommendation and put Ajit Pai on the FCC. Then Trump comes along, and he gets to appoint the new chair of the FCC, right? The old chair of the FCC, Tom Wheeler, he goes away because he's tied to a presidential administration. Tom Wheeler had been approved by the Senate, and he'd gone through the hearings. But Trump knows that he's not going to get a chairman through the hearings, or at least not quickly, and he wants to do this quickly because the big telecom companies are spiffing Republicans like there's no tomorrow. They spent hundreds of millions of dollars lobbying to destroy net neutrality. So what he does is he takes Ajit Pai, who's already on the commission, as a Republican commissioner, and simply elevates him to chair, which does not require a Senate approval because he's already one of those 5 members, all 5 of whom have to be approved by the Senate. So this allows Trump to get around congressional oversight. He can make Ajit Pai, the Republican representative, the chair. He can then appoint another person to fill Ajit Pai's seat, which he has done, and another Republican appointee. And so you're left with now 3 male Republican appointees on the FCC and 2 female Democratic appointees. And that's how the vote came down. The three Republicans said, turn the internet over to the big corporations, and the 2 Democrats said, keep the internet free and open. And so did I answer your question, TJ?
Oh, yeah, thank you very much for all that you do. I'm running Resist Action here in Chicago. But thanks again for everything.
Good on you, TJ. Thank you very much. Al in Buffalo, New York. Hey, Al, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom. I'm a little curious as to how did the progressive left allow the conservatives to control the radio, and I don't want, please don't use the excuse that it was all because of the 1996 Communications Act, because I believe it's more than that. I believe that it's very, very convenient for you to talk from a studio, but it's really inconvenient for you to go outside of that studio and hold town hall meetings to the masses. It's very convenient for people like Norman Goldman to be inside of a studio, just like Ed Schultz. It's very convenient for you to casually dismiss the fact that Bernie Sanders didn't have an impact on the election. It just seems like there's an awful lot of casual dismissal, just like you with RT.
Al, thanks a lot for the call. Steve in Charlotte, North Carolina. Hey, Steve, what's on your mind?
Hey, it's great to talk to you. I learned so much listening to your show, and that was a great explanation about the FCC appointment.
Yeah.
I'll have to remember that so I can share that with some of my friends as well. But so I called because you kind of inspired me to follow through with something that I've been thinking about earlier when you were talking to a caller and you mentioned the effectiveness of communicating with our representatives, and mail being the first one, and then telephone and email. Was that the order that you put it?
Yeah, and this is just what Bernie told us all on this show a couple of years ago when he was doing Brunch with Bernie every week, was that mail has the greatest impact because somebody actually sat down and spent the time to write that letter and address it and everything else. And also typically mail comes from older voters, and older voters have a much higher rate of participation in elections. So senators and Congress, members of Congress, take mail real seriously. Phone calls, again, a lot of personal effort. Emails, they tend to discount because there are programs that generate mass emails and everybody knows it.
Right. So here's my point. So when you said that, it really inspired me to kind of follow through with this. I have an idea to try to organize a grassroots effort to send a letter to Speaker Ryan requesting the impeachment of Donald Trump. And I wanted to emphasize mailing it because in reading the case for impeachment, I understand that there was the reason that Congress initiated impeachment proceedings was because of public outcry. It wasn't necessarily any specific charge or impeachable offense. It was because the public outcry, they had gotten so tired of Nixon that people began to contact their representatives. And back then they didn't have email.
Right.
And my point about email is that I imagine the volume of people who have been emailing their representatives is so understated because it's electronic. It can just be, like you said, it could just be discounted.
Right.
Because
well, that's what happened with the FCC thing. Not only that, I mean, the FCC apparently got hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of phony, blow up net neutrality comments from bots, and they're still trying to figure out what the deal is with that. So,
well, hey, on a side note, you mentioned that. If you remember, Trump's inaugural campaign fundraising campaign came from a lot of anonymous donors who did not actually submit those, who did not actually donate those funds. So I think there's something fishy about that. But my point was, I would like to see, in conjunction with, or in the spirit of the inaugural protest. I thought that was amazing to see all the women that were protesting the day after the inauguration.
Yes.
How many people you saw in the news, and the amount of cities and communities that participated. If somehow we can get people on January 20th to put a letter in the mail requesting that Congress impeach, send a letter to Speaker Ryan and send a letter to their individual representatives.
Mm-hmm.
If we could flood the U.S. mail system with millions of letters on one single day, I think that would send a message as opposed to emailing, where you don't necessarily see the volume of people who are so discontent with this president.
Sure. Steve, that's a great suggestion, and January 20th is a marvelous day to organize around. You know, it's the 1-year anniversary of the inauguration of Trump, and I'm frankly surprised that I haven't yet heard. It doesn't mean it's not happening. I'm not on everybody's email list, but that and some of them are just, you know, they do it so frequently I don't even read them anymore. But I'm frankly surprised that I haven't heard from any group that they are organizing rallies for the 20th. But I think that's a great suggestion. Steve, thank you for the call. Kay in Darby, Montana. Hey, Kay, what's up?
Hi, Tom. I'm a first-time caller and a big fan, and really glad to be able to speak to you. I know there's a lot more important issues right now, such as this despicable tax bill and net neutrality, but there's something I read the other day that kind of bothered me. It was an article from the AP about Senator Gillibrand and her fight with Trump over that horrible tweet.
Right.
And it said, just as an aside, it was part of a much larger article, just said that she was at a bipartisan Bible study in the office of Senator Steve Daines when she stepped out to take the call about Trump's tweet. And I'm just wondering, can they do that on our dime?
Yeah. Oh, they've been doing it for years. In fact, Jeff Charlotte wrote a book about it called what was the title, Sean? We had him on a number of times. The Family, that's right. And it's about this house on E Street here in Washington, D.C.
Oh, okay, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, and the Fundy Christians bought a house, and there's a bunch of Republican members of Congress who live there. There was even a TV show kind of loosely based on it for a little while. You know, it's a cult. The house is owned by this religious group, so they can offer super low rent to these members, these fundamentalist members of Congress. They put on the presidential prayer breakfast once a year. It's the same group. And I don't know if that's the group that was running the prayer meeting that Kirsten Gillibrand was part of or not. You know, there may be multiple groups. There might even be a progressive, you know, religious group.
They can do that right there in the Senate office building?
Yes, they can. And they do. And they've been doing it for years. Kay, I share your astonishment, but there it is. Thanks a lot for the call. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
We're going to check in with Talk Media News in just a minute, and we'll be back with more of your calls on Anything Goes Friday right after this. And welcome back. Omar, watching Free Speech TV in Herndon, Virginia. Hey, Omar, what's on your mind today?
Tom, thank you so much for taking my call. I just want to talk about this net neutrality. One thing that I'm hearing, and one argument is that net neutrality is going to be like allow more freedom, I guess, more innovation, and it's good for business. You know, it's good for competition. You know, which is not quite accurate. I mean, I live in Herndon, it's under Fairfax County, and we serviced by COX. And I had a dispute with them one time, and I wanted to switch, so I called Comcast to have service with them. Comcast told me, no, we can't do service down there. That's exclusively to COX.
Right, Cox Communications, yeah.
Yes. I always have a problem pronouncing that word, but that's why. So I'm stuck with COX in my neighborhood. So there's no way for me to get a different IP. So if this, if they are, let's say, pro-conservative, you know, I'm stuck with them. But net neutrality does not address that. Where, like, they should have a free competition where you can do any service anywhere.
I agree with you, Omar. And you're in the same, you know, bowl of soup or whatever the metaphor is. As about half of Americans. About half of Americans only have one choice for an internet service provider, or only one meaningful choice. I mean, arguably, you could get a Wi-Fi hotspot and use, you know, a cell phone service, but it's going to cost you an arm and a leg. There's an easy solution to this, which is what they do in Europe, which is where you say to, let's say you've got Cox Communications bringing the cable or the fiber into your home.
Yes.
And so what the government says is, bringing the cable or fiber into somebody's home is a legitimate business, but it's a common carrier business. So you can make a profit on this, but you can't gouge people. So let's say it costs Cox Communication $10 a month to bring the cable into your home, and they're charging you $50 a month for your internet service. Well, in the future, if they want, if you want Comcast to be your internet service provider, or CompuServe, or AOL, or Acme, or John's service down the street, that company, that service can become your internet service provider over that Cox line that's coming into your house. They just have to pay Cox $11 or $12 a month for it, or a year for it, or whatever it works out to be. In other words, cover Cox's costs. For access to your home. And then Cox and all these other internet service providers would compete for your business, because like right now, you can go to any retail store online, but you can't go to any internet service provider. And that's because the ISPs have gotten Congress to allow them to lock people out. It used to be, under common carrier rules, Title II, and this is the next logical step under Title II, is to say to all the internet service providers, you must allow any ISP into the home of whoever you have wired. You don't have to lose money on this. You can make money on this, but you cannot gouge people, and we have to have a competitive marketplace. And this is why you've got over 200 internet service providers you can choose from in France, and the average cost of 100 MIP download speed, 200 channels on cable, and free cell phone calls anywhere in the 35, I think it is, EU countries, is less than $40 a month. It's nuts. It's faster than us, and it's better than us, and it's all because they encourage competition by requiring whoever wires your home to make that wiring available at an appropriate cost to any ISP you want to use. Omar, thank you for the call. Fascinating topics. We'll be back with Luke Vargas right after this. Let's check in with Talk Media News and find out what's going on in the world today. This report brought to you by goatsfortheoldgoat.com and Loving What You Do, a new book by Ellen Ratner. And the senior foreign correspondent for the Talk Media News Service is Luke Vargas on the line with us. Luke, what's up?
Hey, Tom. Glad to be with you.
Thank you. So in the world today, we're looking at...
Oh, go ahead, please.
North Korea is at the top of the list, and Rex Tillerson came out a couple days ago and said, I'm ready to negotiate with no conditions. And then Trump comes out the next day and says, no, he's not. Or did I misread that?
No, you didn't. It's been a rhetorical whiplash of the highest order that we've seen just since Tuesday. Secretary of State Tillerson was in Washington at the Atlantic Council giving a speech on the administration's policy towards North Korea. He said very clearly, and he was in a very relaxed, sort of unusual setting, saying, look, the first round of talks, there's going to be no preconditions. We'll talk about the weather if we want to. We could talk about the shape of the table we're going to have our negotiations at. He was really pushing this notion that the U.S. Almost above all wanted North Korea to come to the negotiating table. Then the following day, the White House comes out, starts to rein him in, says, look, actually we do want the nuclear program to be scrapped in advance. Today, Rex Tillerson did sort of a 180 of the remarks he said previously. He's now back on the Trump talking point. He told the UN Security Council this morning the cessation of North Korea's nuclear campaign needs to be a prerequisite, that the North Korea must earn its way back to the negotiating table. But yet, when confronted with this, when reporters just behind me several minutes ago said to the secretary, why have you reversed yourself? What's the lack of clarity here? He just almost chose not to listen to the question and said, well, we're not going to accept anyone else putting preconditions on our participation in North Korean negotiations. So again, it's pretty clear this week, as if we didn't already know, Secretary of State Tillerson is something of a lame duck secretary, that his views, as expressed quite candidly earlier in the week, do not really reflect the stance of the Trump administration when it comes down to trying to get North Korea to talks.
Right. This is an administration with, at best, an incoherent foreign policy. What does China think about this? They're right there on the border. Last time we talked, I think you mentioned, might have been somebody else, but I'm pretty sure it was you, Luke, who mentioned that the Chinese are starting, it looks like they're building refugee camps on the North Korean border.
Yeah, we don't have all that much more on that point. But just after Tillerson spoke at the UN Security Council this morning, China's deputy UN ambassador has his chance to speak. And, the Chinese have been holding different positions on many issues, many dynamics of the North Korean issue than the United States for a while now. But this speech this morning from China was one of the starkest examples I've seen to date over the past 11 months of this administration. That underscores the fact that Trump has been inefficient or ineffectual in getting the Chinese to change their positions on many issues. Let me just run down some of the big points that the Chinese made today. They criticized tough talking from unnamed countries, basically saying there's a lot of unhelpful, heated rhetoric being injected into this crisis. Of course, I think we know who is being referred to there. The Chinese condemned any unilateral sanctions, saying that North Korea reacts poorly. It is a violation of their sovereignty when countries one-on-one sanction North Korea. Of course, this is something the U.S. has been pursuing even while pushing for more sanctions at the multilateral level. They said the use of force is out of the question. Of course, very different from Tillerson, Mattis, President Trump, who all say it's one of many options the U.S. is considering. And two more. The Chinese went on to say the crisis on the Korean Peninsula is not caused by one party alone. I mean, that's a major worldview difference here, where the Chinese are equating the presence of the U.S. military in South Korea, the continuation of military cooperation and drills with the South Koreans on par with the destabilizing power of the North Korean missile and nuclear programs. And finally, sort of connected to that, the Chinese deputy ambassador saying the U.S. needs to end its military cooperation with South Korea. So they are reiterating what we call the freeze for freeze, the notion that both the U.S. and North Korea need to de-escalate. That's just not how the U.S. sees this, in which we are always framing this as the U.S. is living up to its obligations under the international order. It's enforcing peace by having troops in South Korea, and that's the North Korean side is solely to blame for the destabilization. And let me just say very briefly, finally, there was a part of Tillerson's speech in which he directly criticized Russia and China for what he said are violations of the international sanctions here at the UN Security Council. On Russia, he said the use of laborers. This is something I've seen firsthand in Russia. There are North Korean-owned restaurants. There are a bunch of work camps in inner parts of Russia where there are thousands of North Koreans who are employed and their wages go back to North Korea. So the U.S. is criticizing Russia, and on the Chinese criticism was that they're still sending oil into North Korea. And China said, look, it's really unfair for any country to be criticizing our extended cooperation because we take this issue more seriously than anyone. So again, the gap between what President Trump says he's gotten Xi Jinping to do and what the Chinese are saying about their own North Korea policy shows the U.S. hasn't moved the Chinese really at all.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the head of the United Nations, their top expert on extreme poverty, had something to say about the Republican tax plan today. Do I have that right?
Yes, his name is Philip Alston. He's a special rapporteur, so he's not actually a UN employee, but they do bring in experts on various issues, and they give reports to the UN Human Rights Council. Philip Alston is the special rapporteur on extreme poverty. He just got back from a 2-week trip through the United States. He visited 5 countries, Puerto Rico and Washington, D.C., and I have to say this is one of the most strongly condemnatory statements I've seen against the Trump administration policy out of this building. He basically went and said that the tax reform package that Republicans are putting forward, quote, stakes out America's bid to become the most unequal society in the world and will shred crucial dimensions of a safety net that's already full of holes. I thought what's very interesting about this, again, these special rapporteurs for various issues come to the United States quite often. It's on Flint and other places. They've looked at criminal justice reform. This is specifically on income inequality and extreme poverty. And one thing he pointed out, which I think was really spot on, is he said he was struck as he went around the United States at these caricatured narratives about the innate differences between the rich and the poor, saying that politicians, specifically on the political right, are selling to people this idea that the rich are industrious and entrepreneurial and patriotic, while people who receive welfare are just sitting on their homes and watching TV and using their smartphones. So he very strongly condemned the Republican tax push and said it's the kind of bad policy you need to resort to when you demonize the idea of taxation at all and basically stop funding any of your key government services through taxation. So give it a read. It's 18 pages of real excoriation of the American political system right now.
There you go. Luke Vargas of Talk Media News. Thank you, Luke.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
Thom Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by the Aiden Forecast, an investment newsletter with weekly updates of leading market indicators and a monthly deep dive into what the details of the economy and the markets mean for investors and retirees. On the web at aidenmarkets.com. Wines have some of the highest pesticide levels in our food chain. This hour brought to you by ecowine.com. Pesticide-free wines, organic wines, imported from France by the Organic Wine Company, ecowine.com. Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by Super Beets. Super Beets are sourced from non-GMO beets, and they're packed with dietary nitrates, helping to produce nitric oxide for more energy, stamina, and support for healthy blood pressure levels naturally. For more information, call 800-223-8242 or visit tomsbeets.com.
Welcome back. Free Speech TV, it is hopefully the last day of our pledge drive. We'll see. If we don't raise enough money, we may have to slop it over into a few days next week. But yesterday was a pretty good day, and we're getting there. We really need to nail this thing down. Special thanks to folks who put together, in aggregate, another $10,000 matching donation for today. So your gifts up to $10,000 will be matched today, and the people who put this together, that is the donors who contributed, Karen Curlin, Tom Johnston, Mark Anderson, Mary Cameron Goodwin Rule, Diego May, Vincent Dabrowski, Genevieve Vaughn, and Kevin Caffrey. And thank you so much for caring enough about this network to make a matching grant, so that everybody else who makes a contribution today, if you make a $10 contribution, it becomes $20. If you make a $20 contribution, it becomes $40. If you make a $100 contribution, it becomes $200. If you make a $360 contribution, it becomes $720. It's whatever you give, it'll be doubled. So it's a great day to give. Plus, it's tax deductible. It's the end of the year. Plus, if you're thinking of making a matching contribution or anything like that, please let the folks know, 877-378-8669, and they'll connect you to the person who takes care of all that sort of thing. But our pledge drive is going well. We're behind, and it's been this way for like the last year, and I think that not every single pledge drive, but most of them have been soft. And I think it's because so many of us just threw so much money into the last political campaigns, the last year and a half or so, 2 years of politics. Well, really 2 years, because a lot of progressives threw money at Bernie during the primary. Well, a lot of progressives threw money at Hillary during the primary too, and so a lot of people are just kind of tapped out or whatever, but we still have to run a television network. We still have to keep the lights on and keep the electrons flowing and get the signal into your home and get it in the other platforms and venues. I know they're working on getting it on Apple TV. It's on Roku right now. Dish, Direct, Free Speech TV. It's on YouTube. It's on live stream. I mean, it's all over the place. So we need to spread the word, and please let your friends know about Free Speech TV. I mean, what a great thing that we have here. And Free Speech TV, I mean, we're trying to raise money just to keep the lights on. We're not yet to the point where we're talking about let's raise money for a promotion budget. So you are Free Speech TV's promotion budget. No exaggeration. And we need to promote this network. So in addition to making a call today, 877-378-8669, and making a contribution, consider also, particularly as we go into the holiday season here, we'll be getting together with family and friends, a great time to let them know about Free Speech TV. So please consider helping out in that regard too. If you make a contribution of $30 today, Free Speech TV will send you a Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker. Compliments of our friend Caleb. Thank you, Caleb, who printed them for us at no cost. If you make a $60 contribution today, you get the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker plus the Free Speech TV 16-month catalog. That could be $5 a month for a year, too. With a $10 a month for a year contribution, which is $120 or $120 up front, you get the bumper sticker, the calendar, and a copy of Ann Jones's book, Beyond the Messy Truth. With a $240 contribution, you get those three things, the bumper sticker, the calendar, Ann Jones's book, plus Claudia Rankine's book, Citizen, an extraordinary look at race in America. With a $360 contribution, you get Van Jones's book, you get the bumper sticker and the calendar, Van Jones's book, Claudia Rankine's book, and my book, Unequal Protection, which I think is more relevant now than it's ever been, given what's going on with the Supreme Court and just, our rights in general. And with a $1,000 gift, come to Washington, D.C. or Portland, Oregon. Portland is a better bet. We're here a lot more. And we'll get together for lunch. I'd be glad to buy you lunch and look forward to it. I have met some just extraordinary people who have been, some of our Free Speech TV donors. So those are the gifts. Those are the freebies. But what's really important is to keep this network going, is to keep Free Speech TV alive, to keep it, and even beyond life support, to keep it vital, to keep it strong. And I'm willing to push as hard as I can to make that happen. It's just, and I know many of you are too. And thank you so much to those of you who have already made a contribution. And if you haven't, please join the other 2% of Free Speech TV viewers who support this network. Thank you. And you can find it.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. There is an impeachment march happening on January 20th. I figured there had to be, right? I'm not sure if Tom Steyer's group is behind this or not. I just posted the link, or a link to it, over at in our chat room, which you can get to at thomhartmann.com. It's free. You don't have to do anything, no ads or anything. And also, I see on my Twitter feed here, Karen Byrne posted a link to a piece at democraticunderground.com about the march happening on the 20th. So, we'll see what we can find about this and get a little more information and share it with you. But it's Anything Goes Friday today. Maine in Chicago. Hey, Maine, what's on your mind today?
Hey, how you doing, Tom? I had a few things to talk about. After your program is over, there's a program, on Ben Joravsky, but he doesn't. There's no callback. There's no call-ins from
Maine, I have no say or control over the shows that follow mine on individual stations. I've met Ben; he's a great guy. He does a great show, but I can't help you. On this show, it's not appropriate to be complaining about other hosts, if that's all right.
Okay. Okay.
Was that your topic?
No. Okay. That was something else I had to say, but
okay. Well, go for the something else, man.
Okay.
What's on your mind?
That's okay.
Okay.
I'll call
All
back
right.
another
Okay.
time.
Thanks a lot, man. It's always nice to hear from you. Thank you. Paul in Portland, Oregon. Hey, Paul, what's on your mind today? Paul, listening to X-Ray FM? No, Paul. Okay, let's try Rich in Cedro Woolley, Washington. Hey, Rich, what's on your mind today?
Hey, back from the graveyard shift. Yeah, your dog situation. I've got a big backyard. I've been through this a couple of times. You may have to go down to a bark park, find a fairly empty bark park, so there's little distractions. Introduce them there, a big space, play them till they're both very tired, give them a good hour of play together, and then bring them there separately, and then bring them back home in the same car and just have lots of toys around, and that'll probably solve your toy jealousy problem.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like great advice.
Treat them very equally. Even give your established dog a little more attention so it doesn't get jealous of the new puppy.
Right. That makes that all sounds very, very rational, very logical. Good idea. Thank you.
It works for us. And then the tax thing, seems like every time the Republicans, whether it was the Bush tax checks or now the little pittance that are throwing to his peons here at the bottom, it's like a tacit admission that our economy bubbles from the bottom. It's a demand economy that they need to have cash at the bottom.
It's true of all economies, by the way.
It's not a straight giveaway to the rich. It's like they give us some peanuts to play with to keep things bubbling here at the bottom.
Yeah.
Because they know it's demand economy.
Well, the fact that demand generated by consumption at the bottom of the economic pyramid drives economies has been known for 7,000 years. This is not something new. It got super fine-tuned and clarified in 1776 when Adam Smith published Wealth of Nations, and a few years later when he published Theory of Moral Sentiments. But it's not a new idea. Horses and oats, sparrows and oats story, which was the late 19th century, the late 1800s. The way that the Republicans pitched tax cuts in the late 1800s was, if you give the rich all the money, actually the metaphor was, if you feed the oats to the horses, because their digestive systems are only 50% efficient, when the horses poop, the sparrows will have lots and lots of undigested oats that they can eat, and so you're actually feeding the sparrows as well as the horses. And isn't that a marvelous thing? So let's give money to the rich people, and they'll poop some of that money on the rest of us, I guess. Well, the Reaganites changed it to urine. They pee on us and tell us that it's raining. Trickle-down economics. Yeah.
The other thing was we truck drivers should know exactly how badly we're going to get screwed, because we deliver everything, including information, to every podunk corner of this country. So if we feel like we're getting screwed, we're going to let the whole world know.
My understanding of this tax bill is that not only does it screw over the road truck drivers, and particularly long haul truck drivers, but that it also screws Uber drivers and Lyft drivers and TaskRabbits and anybody who's basically working in the gig economy and trying to deduct the expenses associated with their work in the gig economy from their income. It's going to make it much, much more difficult for them. This is a bill that is designed to help billionaires with their tax problems, but not some guy who's making $30,000 a year, working 15 hours a day, running around on behalf of Uber or Lyft or something. It's spot on. Rich, I got to move along, but well said. Thank you for the call. Todd in Aurora, Illinois. Hey, Todd, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom, how you're talking about getting involved with your local Democratic Party. Last night I went to the holiday party of the Aurora Township Democrats, and I had a chance to talk to my state representative, my state senator, my Congressman Bill Foster, candidate for Attorney General of the state, and 2 candidates for governor.
Wow.
And they get a chance to spend 20 minutes talking with all these different people. You certainly can have your voice heard.
Yeah.
One of the interesting things that Congressman Foster was saying is that we can't go with, I had sent him a letter about net neutrality and treating the Internet providers as common carriers, and he said that we can't actually do that because there's something with the way that the packets are sent over the Internet where some of them have to be associated. And if we treat every packet individually and disallow that association, then there's things that won't work. So he's saying that they have to write a carefully crafted piece of legislation that will allow access for everyone, but you can't exactly call it common carrier.
Right. He's lying to you, Todd. He is sharing with you the talking points that were in that super technical research paper that Ajit Pai was quoting from. Day before yesterday at the FCC, where they had some right-wing think tank come up with a rationalization for destroying net neutrality, and that was a piece of it, and it's complete BS.
Ah, okay.
So there you go. But your story about getting involved with the DNC, apparently that particular person is, listening to the stuff that the lobbyists are selling. But the story of being involved with the DNC and actually being able to interact with your elected officials is absolutely solid. And good on you, Todd, for doing that. And that, you want to have an influence. You want to have your voice be heard. You want to, have something to say out there. This is the way to do it. So, Todd, thank you very much for the call. Dee Dee in Fullerton, California. Hey, Dee Dee, what's on your mind?
Oh, hi. Thank you for taking my call. It's my first time calling in anywhere. Anyway, I kind of wanted to talk about net neutrality and under Title II, being that the three big service providers are in essence taking themselves out of being a public utility to provide to the public. They're taking that factor out.
That's right.
My understanding is right.
That's right.
They are private, but they're totally going to the private sector.
Yep.
So if that's the case, then when we put it like, how do I put it? You have to excuse me. I'm kind of nervous. Can we put it like the Internet's like brick and mortar? If you put it like you have thousands and thousands of small businesses, and if you have like three big gangs or mobsters or whatever go into these small businesses and say, unless you pay me more.
That's exactly what's going on, Dee Dee. Yeah, you've nailed it. It's like an extortion game, and it's going to get worse. It's going to get a lot worse. Dee Dee, thank you for the call. Spot on.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Back with more of your calls on Anything Goes Friday right after this. And welcome back. Jack in Petaluma, California, watching us on Free Speech TV. Hey, Jack, what's on your mind today?
Yeah, Tom. Thank you for taking my call, and welcome back to Northwestern United States.
Thank you. Thank you. We're happy to be here.
Oh, yes. What I'd like to comment on is recently I've learned that France is taking our climate control scientists in until we're done with our current administration. It doesn't seem to worry about our climate, and I think that's great. And the second thing I want to comment on was the fact that when you lived in Germany, three friends and I, now, I don't know if you've ever been to Northern California.
I have.
And Bodega Bay area.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Santa Rosa got a third of it wiped out with the fire.
Right.
Okay? And so these three friends and I, last Wednesday morning, went out at 4:30 in the morning to Bodega Bay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Bodega Bay, at one time, back in the 50s and 60s, PG&E wanted to put a new nuclear power plant out there at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a small cove right out on Bodega Head called Campbell Cove. And we went out there to do some crab, Dungeness and rock crab fishing.
Sure.
The thing is, when you sit back, we were 50 yards from what they call the hole. PG&E dug a hole out there to start their excavation for the nuclear power plant.
Right.
Well, that hole didn't fall in. It filled up with water after they found out they were digging a hole for nuclear power plant right on the San Andreas Fault.
Right.
And they could not build their nuclear power plant on top of it. And that small community, Bodega Bay, which probably has maybe 1,500 people. They rose up and they fought that nuclear power plant. And today, that whole area is a Federal Reserve. And I hate to think of that area going by the way of Bears here.
Yeah.
And I'm sure never it's going to. Now, I've been to Utah. I've seen the staircase. I've seen all that. And it's beautiful. And they're so willing to turn it into junk.
Well, there's uranium under that far land, Jack, and
I know there is.
And they want to make some money poisoning the locals and shipping that uranium off to your nearest, bomb factory or nuclear power plant. Jack, thanks for the call. It's spot on. I completely agree with you. I appreciate hearing from you, and thanks for watching Free Speech TV. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. Something that's been rolling around inside my head. A couple of weeks ago, there was well, actually, let me tell you just a very quick story before this. When I was a kid, I was really into writing poetry. I loved writing poetry. My heroes were Dylan Thomas, Bob Dylan, E.E. Cummings, T.S. Eliot. I mean, I was just, Henry David Thoreau. Well, he was more of a essayist. Ralph Waldo Emerson, Walt Whitman. I was just like totally into these guys, and I was writing poetry constantly. And in junior high school, in 8th grade, I had an English teacher, and for our assignment, I also was taking Latin at the time, and so for our assignment, we had to come up with a literary paper for English class. And so I wrote a 4-page poem in 4-line verse about the assassination of Julius Caesar on the Ides of March. And I spent a week on this thing, and I just fine-tuned it and got it exactly where I wanted it, and it was so good. And I submitted that to my English teacher, and my English teacher called me up to the front of the room. Then, the next day after she'd read everything and graded the papers, called me up to the front of the room, and I thought, oh boy, she's going to recognize all the work I put into this. I go up to the front of the room, and I'm standing next to her with this big smile on my face, and she says, I would like you all to see the face of a plagiarist. A plagiarist is a person who steals other people's work. And I'm like, I didn't steal that. And she said, there's no way you could have written this poem. I don't know where you stole it from, but there's no way you could have written this poem. And I was just crushed. I was devastated. And I never discussed it with my parents. I never discussed it, frankly, with anybody. I just, and it wasn't until 10 years later. Now, that was when I was like 13, 14 years old. It was a decade later when I was married, and it was Louise's birthday, as I recall, and I wanted to write her a poem. And I sat down and I wrote her this, what I thought was kind of a cool poem. I think she still has it. And it suddenly hit me when I was all done that it was the first poem I had written since that teacher had called me up in front of that class. That for a decade, I had just cut that out of my life. And, it was like, whoa. And so I say this by way of saying that a couple of weeks ago, a woman called up who wanted to sing a song on the air. I'm saying this right now because I have to get it out of my head. I think about it every day. She called up, she wanted to sing a song. We'd had somebody a couple of days earlier who'd called and sang, a song on the air. These are versions of the national anthem. And I let that person sing it a couple of days earlier. And I said on the air, that's the last time we're going to let somebody sing a song on the air because it just took so long, and it kind of drags down the show. But I don't think she heard that, and she called and she started singing the song. She hadn't told Arthur she was going to sing on the air. And I cut her off. I literally just cut her right off. Said, we don't allow singing on the air. And I haven't heard back from her, and it's been several weeks. And I think that maybe that really hurt her feelings, maybe wounded her the way that I was wounded when my teacher, basically cut me off from presenting my poem. And so I wanted to, I'm sorry I don't remember her name, if you are her, I'm sorry I don't remember your name, but I wanted to apologize for that. And if you want to call and try, if you're that person, the one person I'm going to let sing a song on my show, feel free. But I just, you know, every day I think about this, and I just had to say it to get it out of my head. You know, every now and then something happens that just kind of sticks with you. And I just felt so bad about that. And at the time, I was just, I'm sticking with my rules. And you know, sometimes you don't stick with the rules. You do what's the right thing. John in Marshall, Michigan. Hey, John, what's on your mind today? John? Back to Anything Goes Friday? No, John. Okay, let's try Charles in Los Angeles. Charles, can you hear me?
Yes, hello.
Hey, Charles, you're on the air.
Hi. I was looking through the dictionary. I'm old school, so I was looking through the dictionary for American First, trying to find information about Indians, and I came up with an interesting find in there. There was a American First Committee.
Yep.
This is in the Webster's Family Dictionary.
Yeah, in the 30s and 40s,
Okay.
they were Nazis.
I beg your pardon?
In the 1930s and 1940s, the America First movement was a don't fight Hitler movement. It was a don't go to World War II movement.
Exactly, exactly. I just wanted that information to get out over the air.
Yeah, this is why so many people, you know, old enough to remember, and there's not that many still alive right now, but and a bunch of historians, when Donald Trump rolled out his, you know, America First, started using literally that phrase all over America, there were people going, what? That's why. Yeah.
Yes.
Because the America First movement was a Nazi
movement. Another thing that I
movement.
looked up was great to see about Make America Great Again.
Right.
And there was many, many references to great, from Great Wall, Great Salt Lake, Great Smoky Mountains. The only ones that I could find about politics was the Great Depression and the Great Society.
Yeah.
And you know, the Great Depression, that was, I don't know what party, but the Great Society was a democratic movement or laws by Johnson to improve education and to try to eliminate poverty and generally make the average American's life better.
And the Great Depression was referred to.
Elderly. So I was just wondering, you know, the only other great reference to America besides, you know, the ones that are geographical, is the greatest show on earth. And as you know, in April, the Ringling Brothers Circus pulled down their tent because of low ticket sales and the protest about using elephants, you know, for their show. And I just want to say, I'm thankful that the White House has taken up the void that was created by that. Is, if you think about it, the White House is full of elephants, full of clowns, and unbelievable acts.
Yeah, there you go.
That's all I wanted to say.
Well, thank you, Charles. You said it very well. First of all, the Great Depression up until the 1950s was referred to as the Republican Depression. Eisenhower started referring to it as the Great Depression. We changed that, number one. And number two, Make America Great Again, that was Reagan's slogan. Only it was Let's Make America Great Again.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
Reagan's slogan was at least inclusive. Let's all make America great again. Trump just dropped the let's. Anyhow, we'll be back. Welcome back. Free Speech TV. It is hopefully the last day of our pledge drive. We'll see. If we don't raise enough money, we may have to slop it over into a few days next week. But yesterday was a pretty good day, and we're getting there. We really need to nail this thing down. Special thanks to folks who put together, in aggregate, another $10,000 matching donation for today. So your gifts up to $10,000 will be matched today, and the people who put this together, that is the donors who contributed, Karen Curlin, Tom Johnston, Mark Anderson, Mary Cameron Goodwin Rule, Diego May, Vincent Dabrowski, Genevieve Vaughn, and Kevin Caffrey.
And thank you. Thank you so much for caring enough about this network to make a matching grant so that everybody else who makes a contribution today, if you make a $10 contribution, it becomes $20. If you make a $20 contribution, it becomes $40. If you make a $100 contribution, it becomes $200. If you make a $360 contribution, it becomes $720. It's whatever you give, it'll be doubled. So it's a great day to give. Plus, it's tax deductible. It's the end of the year. Plus, if you're thinking of making a matching contribution or anything like that, please let the folks know, 877-378-8669, and they'll connect you to the person who takes care of all that sort of thing. But our pledge drive is going well. We're behind, and it's been this way for like the last year, and I think that not every single pledge drive, but most of them have been soft. And I think it's because, so many of us just threw so much money into the last political campaigns, the last year and a half or so, 2 years of politics. Well, really 2 years, because, a lot of progressives threw money at Bernie during the primary. Well, a lot of progressives threw money at Hillary during the primary, too. And so, a lot of people are just kind of tapped out or whatever, but we still have to run a television network. We still have to keep the lights on and keep the electrons flowing and get the signal into your home and get it in the other platforms and venues. I know they're working on getting it on Apple TV. It's on Roku right now. Dish, Direct, Free Speech TV. It's on YouTube. It's on live stream. I mean, it's all over the place. So we need to spread the word, and please let your friends know about Free Speech TV. I mean, what a great thing that we have here. And Free Speech TV, I mean, we're trying to raise money just to keep the lights on. We're not yet to the point where we're talking about let's raise money for a promotion budget. So you are Free Speech TV's promotion budget. No exaggeration. And we need to promote this network. So in addition to making a call today, 877-378-8669, and making a contribution, consider also, particularly as we go into the holiday season here, we'll be getting together with family and friends, a great time to let them know about Free Speech TV. So please consider helping out in that regard too. If you make a contribution of $30 today, Free Speech TV will send you a Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker, compliments of our friend Caleb. Thank you, Caleb, who printed them for us at no cost. If you make a $60 contribution today, you get the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker plus the Free Speech TV 16-month catalog. That could be $5 a month for a year, too. With a $10 a month for a year contribution, which is $120 or $120 up front, you get the bumper sticker, the catalog, or the calendar, and a copy of Ann Jones's book, Beyond the Messy Truth. With a $240 contribution, you get those three things, the bumper sticker, the calendar, Van Jones's book, plus Claudia Rankin's book, Citizen, an extraordinary look at race in America. With a $360 contribution, you get Van Jones's book, you get the bumper sticker and the calendar, Van Jones's book, Claudia Rankin's book, and my book, Unequal Protection, which I think is more relevant now than it's ever been, given what's going on with the Supreme Court and just, our rights in general. And with a $1,000 gift, come to Washington, D.C. or Portland, Oregon. Portland's a better bet. We're here a lot more. And we'll get together for lunch. I'd be glad to buy you lunch and look forward to it. I have met some just extraordinary people who have been, some of our Free Speech TV donors. So those are the gifts. Those are the freebies. But what's really important is to keep this network going, is to keep Free Speech TV alive, to keep it, and even beyond life support, to keep it vital, to keep it strong. And I'm willing to push as hard as I can to make that happen. It's just, and I know many of you are too. And thank you so much to those of you who have already made a contribution. And if you haven't, please join the other 2% of Free Speech TV viewers who support this network. Thank you. Well, Marco Rubio is officially running for president in 2020. Here you've got the Republicans running this tax scam where they're going to deliver $5.5–6 trillion worth of our money to the top 1% over the next 10 years. You and I and anybody else who makes under $500,000 a year, or probably under $200,000 a year, is going to pay more in taxes. And, you know, in order to do this. And so Marco Rubio comes along and says, well, you know, let's have the child tax credit be, you know, a few $100s higher. In other words, let's throw a bone to the working poor. Which sounds nice, right? I mean, you know, little Marco, I shouldn't call him little Marco. That's a Trump slur, and it's based on his height. I need to come up with something that has to do with his policies rather than his appearance. But in any case, Marco Rubio, you know, the guy who got rid of the guardrails, the risk corridors in Obamacare, who has done more to kneecap Obamacare than any other senator that I know of, you know, he wants to run for president. And if you're going to run for president, you have to have the rubes. We're talking, you know, Republican voters. You have to have the rubes thinking that you're looking out for them, even though Republicans never do. You know, I just saw in fact, I just retweeted a graphic. I haven't double-checked its veracity, but everything I know leads me to believe that it's probably accurate, that 97 of the 100 poorest counties in the United States are in Republican-controlled states. And then it said, tell me again how Republicans know how to build the economy? You know, Republicans know how to transfer wealth from you, me, and everybody else to the top 1%. Period, full stop. And so Rubio comes out and says, I'm taking a principled stand. If you guys don't give a couple $100 to every one of those poor working people, I'm not going to vote for this bill. And they go, oh, Marco, we need your vote. We'll give you what you want. Oh, you're so noble. You're such a great man. I mean, even the picture in the Washington Post of Rubio, he's got this look on his face like, I'm doing the tough work here for the people. Right. Make me want to puke. Anyhow. Irene in Jacksonville, North Carolina. Irene, you had advice for us on our new dog?
A previous caller talked about using a water bottle as a training tool, and I just wanted to let you know about a really bad experience I had with that. Some time ago, we had purchased a female Doberman Pinscher with champion bloodlines and the intent to breed her. And shortly after we gotten that dog, we had also gotten a little kitten. And I don't know if you know anything about the Doberman breed, but they've got very prominent teats. Mm-hmm. And the little cat was trying to nurse on the dog. And I just blame it on my weird Victorian upbringing. I thought it was really gross. And so I was using the spray bottle on the cat to get her to get away from the dog. Well, went to breed the dog, and then she wouldn't feed her puppies because of that squirt bottle.
Oh. So in other words, you trained the dog.
We ended up having to take the puppies away from her, and she was confused because she loved those puppies. She wanted to care for them. She wanted to be with them, but we had to take them into a separate room and feed them with a bottle and stimulate their little bottoms to make them go, just like the mother would lick and everything. And she would cry and cry at that door for her puppies, but if you put the puppies with her and they went to nurse, she'd snap at them.
Wow.
So it was...
Lesson learned. That's remarkable. Irene, thanks for sharing that story with us. That's fascinating, and you know, something to watch out for. Thank you. Carrie in Seattle. Hey, Carrie, what's on your mind today?
Hello.
Hey, Carrie.
Yeah. Hey, I read a book about a year ago. It was called Quantum Activism, and it was by a guy named Mick, physicist that taught at University of Oregon. I think it was in Eugene, or Corvallis, one of those. But his whole thing was that instead of this upward progression that they teach, where we came out from a primordial pool and then the crowning glory was our brain, and it was the generator of consciousness. His thing was that the quantum side of the coin was primary to the, and it actually collapsed these quantum information waves into the manifest world, and these gaps in evolution are where the consciousness is always trying to make better representations of itself, and so the whole thing is that through these pathways that work back and forth to this collapse, it may be a conditioned collapse. That's why it's like consciousness block for everybody. And the whole thing is to become aware of that side, and from there you may be able to create changes on when this thing is collapsed into the manifest world. And so that's basically what I wanted to say.
Remarkable. My theory has always been that the original energy, which is the entire universe, that slowed down, collapsed into matter, was consciousness, and consciousness that's beyond the consciousness that we normally experience and describe. Consciousness is closer to something like Satchitananda, the consciousness of enlightenment, and that at that level, the entire universe is one thing and is consciousness. But whether that's the case or not, I don't know, but it's my operating theory. That's a good one, Kerry. Thanks.
The whole thing was to quit speculating on it, that it's possible. Maybe when you talk about going for walks, or when you're even going through the checkout line and the thinker's absent for a minute, you're probably on that other side. And one other thing, when they did these experiments, you've heard of the double slit experiments, where they shot a photon molecule, and then it was registered behind this lead or metal plate that had two horizontal slits in it. It'd register on a screen, a photographic screen behind.
Right.
And when they were observing the experiment, it acted like baseballs. It'd go through one slit or the other, and that's the way it would register on the screen. When they weren't observing the experiment, the photon went through both slits at the same time and registered a different story on the photographic screen.
Right.
So the whole thing is, if you're laying in your living room watching TV and nobody's there, you're actually in wave state until somebody observes you or you observe yourself.
Right, it could be, yeah. And Amit Goswami wrote some great books on this. Fred Wolf wrote some good books on this. I spent a week in India at the Dalai Lama's home with both of them, these two physicists, and just some brilliant stuff. That was back in 1999, and in fact, I think it was Goswami, or maybe actually it might have been like Niels Bohr, one of those guys back in the 60s, who said that that reality is a continuous. I'm forgetting the adjective he used. Something like amorphous, swirling bowl of primordial soup that snaps into being the moment you look at it, and the moment you look away, it turns back into this primordial soup, back into waves. Because what you're describing is the change, the transition between a wave state and a particle state. And and the screen, by the way, was coated with phosphorus, so that when an electron hits the phosphorus, it causes it to knock a valence electron off the atoms and lights it up. That slit experiment is fairly famous. Yeah, spot on. Good stuff, Kerry. Thank you for the call. Bill in Clifton, New Jersey. Hey, Bill, what's up?
Hi, how you doing?
Good.
I think meditation is a good thing, but what works for me is just being nice to people.
That's a great start.
Whatever that gives you back is a whole lot better than anything, when I think of the 50s, it was all about, white people and everything, but everybody was happy and connected. The postman, the honeymooners, that whole thing.
Right.
That was, everyone was connected, and there wasn't a class thing or anything like that. But
well, there was. It just wasn't. It wasn't quite because inequality was nowhere near as bad. In the 1950s was the lowest period of inequality in the history of the United States. And it was because of the social programs that have been put into place in the 1930s by Franklin Roosevelt and expanded, frankly, by Dwight Eisenhower. He bragged about, having expanded those programs. So, spot on.
And I guess you and I grew up that time.
Yeah.
And I don't remember so many discussions about money and this whole, you know, back and forth about taxes or anything. Maybe I was, you know, sheltered or something, but among anybody I knew, it wasn't the big topic.
Dwight Eisenhower was a Republican, and he ran for election and successful re-election on maintaining a 91% top tax rate for billionaires and a 40% plus tax rate for corporations. Corporations at that point in time were providing about a third of the total revenue for the federal government. Now it's around 11%. So, yeah, things have changed a lot since the 1950s.
Right.
Bill, I got to move along, but thank you for the call. Carlos in Austin, Texas. Hey, Carlos, what's up?
Yes, Tom, thank you for taking my call. What I would like to talk about is the administration's enforcement and focus on illegal immigration, specifically like with the undocumented worker. I mean, I've listened to their position for however long the administration's been in office now, and no one ever talks about the employer side of the coin, the people that hire the undocumented.
You're absolutely right. And I've been saying this for a long, long time, Carlos. We don't have a, quote, illegal immigrant problem in the United States. We have an illegal employer problem in the United States.
Exactly.
Reagan was the one.
Exactly true.
Right. Reagan changed the policy. He changed. Prior to 1986, we used to put wealthy white employers in jail when they hired people who were not citizens. Reagan stopped that process, and as a result, those wealthy white employers started bringing as many people as they could exploit into this country as possible. Carlos, thank you very much. Spot on.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Back with more of your calls. Anything Goes Friday right after this. Welcome back. Jim in Los Angeles. Hey, Jim, thanks for watching Free Speech. What's up?
Hey, Tom.
Hey, Jim.
Yeah, sorry, I was in a coffee bean. Anyhow, thank God for Alabamans. Glad they got out there. Two things I really I wanted to say. So many millennials are registered independent, and they must change it to Democrat. The United States of America is a two-party system. That's it. You can go green locally or whatever, but you have to register Democrat. There's serious reasons for that. That's partly
particularly if you want to participate in Democratic primaries and close
all
primary
red
states.
The churches should start voter registration drives.
People can't hear me.
You know how Alabama closed all the DMVs. The churches must have vans taking people to register to vote Democratic.
Jim, am I really faint on your end of the phone?
Yes, you are, my friend.
Yeah, okay. Because I've had a number of people talk over me today. I think that we've got a volume problem. We've got to fix this. Anyhow, your point is well taken, Jim. What's the call for action?
The call for action one: millennials register to vote Democratic. Yeah. If you're registered, if you're not, but so many. I found there's only 37% of Americans registered Democratic,
right?
And there's 30% registered independent.
Yeah. No, I'm with you, Jim. We're both starting to repeat ourselves. I'm spot on. I agree. Thank you for the call.
Alrighty, Tom.
Yeah. Good talking with you. Doug, watching Free Speech TV in Fort Collins, Colorado. Hey, Doug, we got a minute to the break. What's up? Actually, maybe a minute and a half.
Hey, Tom, yeah, I'm having a hard time hearing you, but I'll make this really quick.
Thank you.
I'm in Fort Collins, Colorado, and we had on the ballot last November for our city to provide us with high-speed internet.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be very cheap, like $35 a month, compared to Comcraft is charging me over $100.
Right.
And this way, we won't have a
Did it pass?
Corporation throttling our internet.
Did it pass?
Yes, it did.
That's
overwhelmingly, great. Even though that there was commercials on TV all the time saying to vote against it, it was a dumb idea. it passed overwhelmingly here in Colorado. We have other cities here in Colorado that are doing it also, and everybody's happy with it. So I would ask everybody to get your cities involved to provide it as a utility.
Well, the only problem here, Doug, is that the FCC is saying that they can now pass a regulation at the federal level saying that it is against the law for states or municipalities to do what you just described.
One more thing for me to call my senator about.
Yeah, exactly. This is why, under the Congressional Review Act, we need to blow up what Ajit Pai did yesterday. And, you know, there needs to be a motion of disapproval passed in both the House and the Senate. And there's a bunch of Republicans who are on the right side of this issue, too. I mean, the 80, 90% of Americans are horrified by the loss of net neutrality. This is something that it was purely done for a handful of corporations that have spent about $600 million lobbying for this over the last, decade or so. And it's just, it's a terrible, terrible thing. Doug, thank you for the call. Good for you, Colorado, or I guess Longmont, Fort Collins, whatever the town was that did that. Good on you. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. Rob, listening to WPRR in Rockford, Michigan. Hey, Rob, what's on your mind?
Hi, Tom. I just wanted to bring something to your attention. So net neutrality was killed, or internet equality was killed now, and I work for AT&T, and this morning they had an announcement where they are laying off over 4,500 union workers. And they told us all that this morning.
Wow. So these corporations like AT&T, giant, insanely profitable corporations and AT&T just got its way in blowing up net neutrality, that so desperately need a tax cut because they're so profitable, are laying off union workers? Really?
That's right.
Wow. Wow. Rob, thanks for the heads up on that. That's not surprising, but bad news. Mariah in New Brunswick, New Jersey. Hey, Mariah, what's on your mind today?
Hey, my name is Mariah, and I'm a member of Rutgers United Students Against Sweatshops. We're actually running the Fight for 15 here at Rutgers campus, and we just won $11. But following an action on Tuesday at the Board of Trustees, police from the Rutgers Police Department have been following student activists and organizers around campus, harassing them and attempting to incite fear in workers.
Whoa.
Wow. Yeah, it's pretty messed up. And I'm calling to ask people to call in to the Rutgers Police Department and express their concern with this blatant abuse of power.
Okay. Now, the Rutgers Police Department answers presumably to Rutgers University. So wouldn't it be, if you want to have a pressure point, rather than talking to the malefactors themselves, who will just say, tough luck, and hang up on you, why not contact the office of the president of the university?
Investigative Affairs has started getting involved in response to the mass number of phone calls we have.
Oh,
but
great.
If you want to put another point of pressure on it, you can call Student Affairs and ask for Felicia McGinty.
Okay. Yeah, I would think Student Affairs or the president's office or someplace like that would be the, a really, really important place to start. Mariah, good luck, and keep us up to date on your student activism, how it's working, okay?
All right. Thank you
Great.
so much.
Thanks a lot, Mariah. Great to hear from you. Linda in Deerfield Beach, Florida. Hey, Linda, what's on your mind?
Hi, Tom. I had a little piece of advice as far as you're looking for a new Poochie, and I have a question.
Okay.
My advice is make sure and get your trainer ready.
Yes. Louise has a really great trainer, and Blue is, surprisingly well-trained, so she's all over that.
Well, but Blue's also going to be the alpha dog, so when you introduce them or when you go pick this dog out, you got to go take Blue with you.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be about scent. And they have 400 sensors on their nose. And if they sense that something's a threat, something's different, this is going to take attention from me, you're going to see a side of Blue you've never saw before.
Yeah, I
suspect
suspect
you got to pick Blue's toys up, wash them, and introduce them into a safe area that neither one has scented yet. That's my advice.
Yeah, and I was thinking, buy a bunch of brand new toys so that they're not, so Blue doesn't think this new dog is taking his toys. You know, rather that, hey, it's Christmas morning kind of thing, you know.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So, but I think you got a handle on it. My other question is, and I'll take your answer off the air, what is this net neutrality going to do to these mom and pop businesses that run on the internet? And isn't this eventually going to backfire on them because people aren't going to use the internet because they can't afford it?
Correct.
And I'll take your answer off the air.
Well, no, you don't even need to do that, Linda. I'm just telling you, you are absolutely right. The death of net neutrality is the victory of literally a handful of giant multinational, multi-billion-dollar, insanely profitable corporations that own the pipes into our houses. And unlike in other countries where if they have the pipe into your house, they're required to let anybody run their electrons over them, here in the United States, we allow them to lock your house out. And so if Verizon is providing the cable into your house, then Comcast can't be your ISP, or AT&T can't be your ISP, or SovereignNet can't be your ISP, or whatever. And we need to change that so that there's actual competition in the internet service provider sector. But you're right, this is going to be devastating to smaller companies once they start jacking up the price to add content to the internet. It's going to be terrible. Linda, thank you for the call. Patrick in Donaldson, Illinois. Hey, Patrick, what's on your mind?
Yes, Tom, can you hear me?
Just fine, Patrick. I'm guessing I am faint in your ear.
Oh, that's all right. Well, first of all, I just wanted to thank you for the work you do, and you're a real patriot of the First Order, and I appreciate it, like your show.
Thank you.
And I like what you said about Marco Rubio. I couldn't agree more about that, his grandstand fake defiance there. And
yeah,
I hope he's not fooling too many people. And also, your story about your poem and accusation of plagiarism. I had a similar experience that really hit home with me, and it kind of killed my spirit when I was younger, and I think it affected in a major negative way my educational opportunities after that. And I just, appreciate good teachers. I have a lot of them in my family, my sister and my mom, and I think it's getting better. I don't know if you went to public school.
Yeah,
but
I did.
Anyway, the real comment is, I'm sorry. My real question is, as far as Tom, what's his name?
Steyer?
Yeah, that's leading the impeach Trump movement.
Right.
I was really down with that at first, and it sounds like a great idea. But now I'm questioning, might it be better to keep Trump in office because he's so impotent and ineffective, and more so every day?
The problem is he's not impotent and ineffective, Patrick. He is slashing the EPA. He's destroying the Department of Interior. He is cutting the IRS. He's cutting the staffing at the Social Security Administration so that you're going to start having problems with Social Security, et cetera, et cetera. He is doing what Republicans always do, which is break government so that then they can stand around and go, oh, look, it's broken. Let's replace it with for-profit corporations. Anyhow, it's been a great week. Thank you so much for being with us this week. We'll be back next week. And in the meantime, don't forget, democracy is not a spectator sport. It requires all of us to participate, and that includes you. Get out there, get active, tag. You're it. We'll see you Monday.
You've been listening to Thom Hartmann. For audio and video archives, visit thomhartmann.com.
The Thom Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by the Aiden Forecast, an investment newsletter with weekly updates of leading market indicators and a monthly deep dive into what the details of the economy and the markets mean for investors and retirees. On the web at aidenmarkets.com. Wines have some of the highest pesticide levels in our food chain. This hour brought to you by ecowine.com. Pesticide-free wines, organic wines, imported from France by the Organic Wine Company, ecowine.com. Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by Super Beets. Super Beets are sourced from non-GMO beets, and they're packed with dietary nitrates, helping to produce nitric oxide for more energy, stamina, and support for healthy blood pressure levels naturally. For more information, call 800-223-8242 or visit tomsbeets.com.